Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Are you ready for some football? It's going to be an NFL playoff weekend party, and we're starting early here on Sportswire Radio with four of my guys, including Chris Pizzea of the Talking Rivals and the Liftoff Jets, Patrick Trotty, also esteemed off of the Talking Rivals, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, and the brute force Brad Weiss of the legendary SJC Golden Eagle men's basketball alum. Also, of course, our head coach from our Plainview JFK Hawks boys junior varsity team, and also with Level Up and the Long Island Nets. And guys, are you ready?
We're certainly ready.
Oh, we're ready to go, Tom. Oh, we're ready.
Well, we better be ready because it's going to be a warm one when it comes to the NFL playoff weekend because we got a number of matchups here. But before we get into that, we'll preview the games and we'll get everybody's thoughts. Also, shout out again to John Gonzalez and his Sports Authority group for allowing us to post that. We're going to be obviously with everyone here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportnarium.com/player. I wanted to get everybody's reactions on the Houston Texans yesterday firing their head coach, and wanted to start with the brute force Brad Weiss, maybe on his thoughts since we haven't heard from him since last Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of, was I surprised necessarily? I wouldn't say I was that surprised. But I was kind of, wondering why. Listen, the Texans have no clue what direction they're going in from any sort, any phase of their team, whether it's coaching, front office, at this point, community relations. I mean, we can go forward and forward. They don't know what the hell they're doing in any aspect of, football or anything outside of football. So I'm not surprised in regards to that. But, I thought that Davis Mills played, good enough football to have Cully stay around and, maybe give him another shot at it. With Davis Mills, maybe even try to draft a quarterback to, potentially work with Cully. But I guess, what they saw was not good enough. And for me as a coach, I really don't see exactly what he did to warrant a firing. That's one of the things, like, listen, we all know that some of these other coaches that you guys talked about that I was able to listen to last on Tuesday that deserve to be fired. He's not one of them, and certainly Brian Flores is not one of them. So, I'm disappointed with both of those. But in the end, the Cully situation with the Texans, I'm not surprised. But as a coach myself, I'm just shaking my head. Why?
Well, you said something interesting before I get to the guy's perspective on it, and shout out to everybody who's watching us on Facebook and on YouTube and also on Twitter for some of our Sportswire radio shows who are sharing it. You are a coach now. You're also a very decorated college basketball player. You were involved with a well-known coach that was replaced at SJC, Kevin Spann. So you've been through this rodeo as a player, and you're seeing it now on the other end as a coach. I mean, how would you feel as a coach about the situation?
Well, obviously concerned. I'm sure he's probably, questioning the decision, but also, it's just the environment. You hear about the Houston Texans environment, and you can't, maybe it was one of those things where Cully, was trying to get his way out. I know it's an NFL job, and, you don't want to lose your job there. But at the same time, if your locker room's toxic, if your team is not motivated to win, then as a coach, your motivation to keep coming to practice and keep coming to every game every single day, that motivation changes too. And maybe David Cully, just felt like that wasn't for him. And maybe, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But maybe this was him influencing his way, that he just wasn't happy being the coach there and felt that he maybe could get a better opportunity. So it's tough, though, because, like I said, he didn't really deserve it. But in the end, the Houston Texans, like I said, it's not an organization that you certainly look to as an example right now. And it's certainly not one that I think every coach is striving to coach for right now.
Yeah, they haven't been consistent in their organization just in terms of a number of different things. Obviously, some of that is on the field as well. So those are fair points, and I'll come back to you maybe on some of those thoughts in a little while, maybe your reactions to Joe Judge and maybe Brian Flores. And for you, Justin, obviously good to be with you once again, my friend, and wanted to get your reactions to the Houston Texans changing coaches here with David Cully.
Yeah, it's surprising yet not surprising. Everything you heard And I even remember hearing this at the time they hired him. He always seemed to be that one and done candidate because it just seemed like he was a bridge coach, which actually is a little surprising because if you think about the Houston Texans, and this was their 20th season in the NFL, they've only had this. He was only their fourth full-time head coach. Dom Capers coached the first 4 years, and then it was Gary Kubiak for a number of years, and then Bill O'Brien was there for almost 7 full seasons, before getting fired last year. So it's not like the McNair family had been in the business of, hiring and firing coaches. However, it seems like things have changed in a very negative way over the last year or so. So much so that it really seemed like David Culley was like their 8th choice. And they were the last team to hire a coach last year. They got started late in the game last year. And it just kind of seemed like the relationship with McNair and GM Nick Caserio, it just never fully meshed together, despite, what some would say was a no-win or one-win roster. They won 4 games this year. And you saw development at the end of the year. You saw good quarterback play out of Davis Mills, thinking maybe we got something here. And the whole team just seemed inspired. But it clearly looks like they had their eyes set on the bigger fish in the sea, and they couldn't land it last year. So they're going to try to land it this year. I mean, and you know what? You could feel sorry for David Culley getting fired after 1 year. He is getting $22 million.
Well, that's quite a parachute, or a golden parachute, as they would say. So I'm with you, Justin. Can't feel too bad about him. But obviously, it was a team that I thought played well down the stretch, and they definitely won a number of games and had a win, obviously most notable against the Tennessee Titans. And obviously, Chris, good to be with you, my friend. Always looking forward to your perspective and your hard-hitting analysis, and just your thoughts on the whole situation now with the Houston Texans as they part ways with their head coach.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise. I mean, the guy did a pretty good job considering I think most of us had the Texans winning 1 or 2 games this year, if that. The whole, Deshaun Watson predicament. But this is the Texans, though. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that much. I mean, they signed him to a 4-year deal, right? And like Justin said, he's got like $15 million more coming to him. So I don't feel bad for him in that sense. Financially, he's obviously pretty good. But, from a professional standpoint, it makes no sense to fire the guy. I mean, he stood up there. He took all the shots early in the season when all the Watson questions would come in, and he had to stand there and take it. So he did that well. But it's just not surprising at this point because they have a young elite quarterback, and he's never gonna play again for them. And that whole situation made no sense, right? After they signed him to a big extension, a couple of months later, he's like, I never want to play here again, So it's just a mess. And now you got to think about it. Who would want to go there and coach if they're letting guys go after 1 year after doing a good job? So I don't know if they're going to be able to entice get a decent head coach, a decent candidate there. So we'll see. I know Robert Flores interviewed today, so we'll see how it goes. But very strange situation for sure.
And I got to give a huge shout out to John Gonzalez because John is always sharing our stuff and John is listening to us. So shout out to John. And John has a couple of thoughts. He says, I'm here. Yes, we know, John, you're here. Obviously, good to have you. But John also, most importantly, talks about the fact that he was a bit surprised because he thought that the guy had nothing to work with. But he said it's the Texans. Yeah, but the Texans have had some success. So Justin makes a fair point on that. John also chimes in and says that Bill O'Brien, the former Texans head coach, has emerged as a leading candidate for the Jacksonville job. Yep, fair point. I think we talked about that or was in our Sportswire discussion group. And Chris also says John says good points with Chris. So John is definitely seeing eye to eye with Chris. Also want to give some shout out to the Brute Force's family, obviously the Gentle Force and the Super Force, the Strong Force, Steve Saperstein, who's with us. So we have a number of people who chimed in here. I mean, the Brute Force, I lost count on how many forces do we have. Did we give your sister a title as a force? I'm trying to remember. I mean, is there anybody else? If your Uncle Rod, did we give him a force position? But we'll definitely, well, your uncle's a big man, so I will definitely say Uncle Rod's a big man. But Patrick Trotty, nonetheless, good to have you, my friend. Wanted to get your thoughts on the whole situation here with the Houston Texans and just where we are before we go into some of the action here in the playoffs this weekend.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It was a little surprising, but then again, I'm kind of agree with what's been said so far. It's on one end, it's surprising. The other end, it's the Texans setting him up for failure almost. I mean, at the start of this year, you go in with a suboptimal roster. He overperforms, and then you kick him to the curb. It doesn't make sense. But from what I heard and read, they wanted to get rid of the offensive coordinator, and he said no. Culley said no, and then they fired him. That's what I heard on listening to some Bills stuff. They were getting into Brian Flores and other things, and that was the report. But, I mean, if that's the case, a lot of respect for Culley to stand up for his offensive coordinator, but I don't feel bad for Culley. I mean, he's well compensated.
$22 million.
But to Chris's point, who's gonna what young, bright, young, up and coming coach? Obviously, it's an NFL head coaching job, but who's gonna take their word that a 4-year contract you're gonna see it through after Culley gets fired in 1 year? I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the Giants, with 3 head coaches in 6 years.
Which we're not used to with the Giants. The Giants have always been a franchise when you take a step back. Parcells was there a long time. Even Jim Fossil was there a long time. Certainly Coughlin. So that was a franchise that had maybe, 4 or 5 head coaches in a 35-plus year span. And now we're going into a 4th head coach for the Giants. And that was obviously something we got into on Tuesday's show. And before we do move on to the postseason talk here, I did want to get the Brute Force's perspective on it because we didn't really quite get your thoughts, Brad, on it when it came to Joe Judge. And obviously, shout out also to Jason Getz, who's obviously watching us. And of course, we know Jason. Big shout out to Jason. And big shout out to everybody from our Plainview crowd that is watching the Brute Force. But the Brute Force, Joe Judge, I mean, it was certainly a situation that on Friday's show, we thought he was going to hang on. We weren't happy about it. Tuesday, some of the people on the stream here, including a Donald Stewart, who's with us, a part of the Sportswire family, he got a late Christmas gift. I mean, what did you think about how the Giants parted ways with Joe Judge?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, there was rumors, going into the last few weeks that they were, planning on keeping Judge and Jones together. Listen, I for a second thought that it could potentially happen until the last week occurred and you saw, some of the ridiculous things that Joe Judge did, especially the third down, basically quarterback sneaking. That right there, that just, in a way, just,
it wasn't the Mike McSorley timeout plan against John Jay, that's for sure.
No. Any time. I mean, listen, again, I'm a coach too. That's like, you're winning by 30 and you still try to, score. Like you still keep scoring. You deserve to be fired after that. Like you're already winning. You don't need to pounce it on people. All right. That type of stuff doesn't really go well. And when you're losing and when your team is stinking and you're this big mouth and Joe Judge that's like, oh, my team, we play hard and guys who haven't been here, say that they want to be here. Like he says all this nonsense. And then, he goes on the field with his team that's supposed to be one of the hardest working teams, right? And then shows them, right, that he's got a quarterback sneak in a game he's losing. And on third and whatever it was.
Has anybody seen that before? You quarterback sneak in a game, you're losing deep in your own territory.
I mean, that's just, to me, as a player, again, I'll go back to being a player now, that's just embarrassing, and that's just a terrible coach right there. I mean, that's just, players should be fed up with that. Like, your coach really doesn't give a damn. That's the nicest way I'll put it. So in the end, Joe Judge deserved it. His big mouth the last few weeks deserved it, and he got himself fired because if he would have kept his mouth shut and not said some of the things that he said, he could have still been the Giants coach.
Yeah, I was listening to Boomer Esiason earlier this week, and he pretty much said the last 3 weeks pretty much had Joe Judge out the door here, and Sal Licata definitely didn't mince any words overnight this week. And I want to give a huge shout out to Steve Saperstein, Mr. Steve Saperstein, of course, prior candidate for the city council in Southern Brooklyn. He has a couple of thoughts here. He says, keep up the good work to the gang. Thanks, Steve. And he says, the Jets suck. They haven't made the playoffs since 2010, but not so fast, Steve. Not so fast, because I'm convinced. Chris has got me convinced that there is hope there is help right around the corner because we got two first round picks. And on top of that, we got a bunch of cap room. We got a young quarterback that played well the last month of the season. We got a running game that's developed. So, and again, trust me, I'm the last guy that preaches positivity, but Chris has convinced me. And that's why you got to listen to the Liftoff Jets here each and every day here on Sportswire Radio. They'll be on tomorrow night. Make sure you go to sportnarium.com/play because I can guarantee you, Steve, Chris has got me convinced that there's help, that it's finally on the way. So hang on, Steve. I know it's tough being a Jets fan. I know it's certainly tough these days because we haven't won anything in over a decade, and the Jets and Giants, unfortunately, since 2017 are tied for the worst record in the NFL at 22-59. So that is certainly a unlikely stat, or not so good stat, but we've also got a comment in here from Mr. Jason Getz, and he says here, this is certainly calling his own shot here. I mean, does anybody want me to
turned
read it
into
off?
like a Reddit subboard.
Brad, do you want to read this comment off actually for Mr. Getz? Would you like to read it for our audience watching and listening?
let me just make a quick comment and get this over with. All right. Yeah. First up, let me just say this. So I said this in the past. So Jason is a player who I train and plays at Clark High School here on Long Island. They got a nice win tonight. He's feeling himself right now, right? He's feeling good. He wants to get at me because, I was all like, you better win this game, and they won. And he's feeling good. The adrenaline's pumping, Tom Bryce. And now he just wants to bust my chops. So in the end, he knows the answer to this question. The answer to this question is don't compare me to Joe Judge, okay? I don't say things like this. I'm not full of nonsense like Joe Judge, all right? So don't compare our coaching skills, okay? My coaching skills right now look a lot better than his.
For you to be Joe Judge,
I would certainly hope so.
You would have to hold the ball, do a four-corner prevent offense while losing.
But before I get to a few other comments, because I have Anthony Finkel. Anthony's called for us, and Anthony's been one of my biggest champions. He's one of the reasons why I'm here for 3 years on the radio, along with Steve Saperstein. But I got to throw it out here to Jason, because you mentioned a couple things on Jason. I got to say it. Jason, do you want to come on the stream one of these days with us? I mean, do you want to put a face to the
Don't let him on, Tom. Don't let him on.
Listen, I'm going to let him on because as for our professional wrestling fans here that listen to the station all the time, it's good. If it's good for business, it's going to definitely be good for us here on Sportswire Radio. So I almost got to throw it out there. Jason, I mean, if you're not doing anything one of these days, if you want to pop on the stream, I mean, feel free and be my guest. We're definitely open invitation here. And also, I got to read some comments here. And Steve Saperstein's getting on you. And Steve's a big man, the Brute Force. I'd love to see you and Steve in a basketball game because Steve, obviously, in his own days, was a player at Midwood High School here in Brooklyn. And also, he was in a few camps by some guy named Michael Jordan, by the way. Steve says, the Brute Force with a brutal question, meaning you had a brutal question towards you. Anthony Finkel is saying here, Friday night sports talk with the boys. The family is here. And John Gonzalez also chimes in here and says that, by the way, and you're getting piled on tonight, the Brute Force. It is definitely, you're getting piled on, man.
We're just getting started, I guess.
Yeah, I could see it's going to be a long night. He says, congratulations on the Lions' victory. So certainly.
Wow.
And Jason Getz has chimed in here and says that he might have to think about it. So I guess apparently, Jason, I think we follow each other on Instagram. So make sure you follow me on Instagram at the Sports Report 2021 and send me a DM. I'm sure we can certainly make something happen. Maybe even, I don't know, next Friday. I mean, if you're not doing anything, I mean, listen, invitation is here. Like I said, if it's good for business, I mean, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I'm going to say. So, Brad, it's definitely been a tough start for you. I have to say, in the 2 years that we've been together, this is probably the toughest start that you've had here with us.
Hey, listen, I can handle it. I just coach first graders. I think I can handle this.
Oh, well, listen, I almost want to say my condolences to you, coaching
much
first
tougher,
graders.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's way, way tougher. I mean, that's certainly I wouldn't certainly doubt your skills on that sense. But obviously, be that as it may, I want to get right into it when it comes to the postseason. We'll get back into Brian Flores and we'll get back into some of the coaching stuff here in a little while because I think people here want to hear us what we think on the games. And I want to go right into it. I want to go into the first game, and that is the Raiders and the Bengals. A very, very intriguing matchup. I'm really excited about this matchup. This is probably this game and the Patriots, Bills, and the Cowboys and 49ers. Those are my games that I'm pumped up for. So So I want to get into it. Raiders haven't won a playoff game in a while, haven't been to the postseason much since 2002. Last time they went to the Super Bowl. And the Cincinnati Bengals certainly have almost at this point a Chicago Cubs-like streak when it comes to not winning a playoff game, because the last time they won a postseason game was all the way in 1990. And it's safe to say that the majority of us here don't even remember the last time that occurred. So I'm going with Justin Gianelli. Yeah, I don't even remember it. But I'm going with Justin Gianelli because I'm looking at Justin's reactions here, and I want to get Justin in. I'm going to go right off the bat. Then we'll loop away around from the rest of the guys. So Raiders, Bengals, give me your thoughts here. 4:30, we're kicking off Wild Card Weekend, Super Wild Card Weekend, and set the tables for us and what we can expect.
All right. I mean, the last time that the Cincinnati Bengals won a playoff game, the Houston Oilers were still in the NFL. That's how long ago it was.
Wow.
It was January,
I don't remember that.
January of 1991. The Bengals defeated the Oilers behind Boomer Esiason, and that was actually the same season. These two teams met in the postseason, and it was the Bo Jackson hip injury.
Oh, sure.
Oh.
That was pretty much the end of his career as an athlete.
Pretty much the end of his career. The Raiders, Rich Gannon was the quarterback the last time they won a playoff game.
2002.
Yep, that's January 2003.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming for both of these teams, and it is time that the Cincinnati Bengals finally get it done. And Joe Burrow has been on a tear this last month of the season. Obviously, last week he rested, and you do worry about that. You do worry about the rust factor because we've seen in instances these teams that rest in week 17, or in this case this year, week 18. They just come out flat. And, you have to be careful, but I just don't see a way where they can stop the run game. So it's going to be prudent that Joe Mixon has a big game. They really don't have anybody who's going to be able to cover Jamar Chase. And if they try to cover Jamar Chase, he'll throw to T. Higgins. And there's just too many weapons on offense for the Bengals to be slowed down. The only concern I have with Cincinnati is that their defense isn't all that great. Aside from a pretty solid pass rush that can very well get home to Derek Carr, they might have a tough time slowing down Josh Jacobs, and certainly on the back end they're not playing all that well either. So this might be the highest scoring game of the weekend, but I certainly believe that this is the time that the Bengals finally get that postseason win for the first time in 31 years.
Wow, 1990 last time they get a win. Raiders last time they had a win, 0-2 into the 0-3 season, the AFC Championship game, which that game I remember very well. That game I definitely have a very good memory of, but I almost have to ask them. So I'm assuming before I get to Chris, Patrick, and the Brute Force, you like the over in this matchup and you like the Bengals to cover? I would actually take the Raiders on the spread. I do. Okay. I do think it'll be close, but 48 and a half. It is 5.5. I could see one of those 34-31 scenarios because I do see the Raiders being able to move the ball as long as they're able to pick up the pass rush and block Trey Hendrickson and the rest of that Cincinnati front. Las Vegas shouldn't have too much of an issue moving the football themselves. It's just I don't think that they have enough stops in them to stop Joe Burrow in this game. So I would take Vegas on the spread, but I would take the Bengals to win the game. So I got a couple of people who've chimed in with their predictions. I got to go with John Gonzalez first, and I like John on this one. He says he's got the Raiders. He sees them as a team of destiny. I kind of feel the same way. I think it's hard to go against them because of their story. Anthony Finkel, he likes the Bengals. He actually puts the Bengals logo in this. So I kind of like the imagery there, Anthony. Obviously, shout out to Anthony because he is everywhere with DPH Property Management. They are like literally everywhere. JFK Airport, I see him in Canarsie. I see him on Long Island. I don't think there's anywhere that they haven't been. John Gonzalez also chimes in and says this will be a high-scoring game. Yeah, I mean, I could see that, although I'm not counting on a lot of these games to be high-scoring, but we'll see what some of the other guys think here. I mean, Chris, Raiders, Bengals. Raiders are 5.5-point underdogs. Over-under is 48.5, 49. I have 49, but 48.5 is probably the most recent one because Justin had mentioned same thing practically. Give me your thoughts on what we can expect here and who do you like gets the W?
You know what? This is a kind of a tough game, a tough matchup because both teams, like you said, have no playoff, wins in 20 and 30 years. So there's no playoff history with these teams. With the quarterbacks are playing their first playoff games. The coaches are playing their first playoff games. So then you look at how they played each other earlier in the year. They did play earlier, and the Bengals did win. They won 32-13. It was a close game for the first three quarters. It was
score was misleading.
Yeah, it was 13-6 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Bengals just pulled away. But you know what? The Raiders did do a good job that day, shutting down the Bengals offense, passing offense at least. Mixon had a really good game though. And it's just a strange matchup, but it kind of leans towards the Raiders. Not that I'm leaning towards the Raiders, but it kind of leans towards the Raiders because the Raiders have a really good pass rush, right? Crosby leads the league in most quarterback pressures in the whole league. And then you got Ngakoue on the other side, who's like 15th. So, and on the other end, Joe Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So you put those two together, you think the Raiders got the advantage. But for me, I just think, like I said, 5.5 does sound a lot, but I'm still gonna go with Cincinnati. I think they're gonna cover. I think it's gonna be kind of like a carbon copy of their last meeting. The weather might have something to do with it too. It's going to be cold.
That's a good point.
Not as cold as New England. I mean, not as cold as the game. Not like that, but it's going to feel like Florida, I think, compared to that game. But
wow.
I think that's going to have something to do with it too. But I think Cincinnati's just a little better offensively, and I'll give them the edge and give them like a 27-14 victory, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the weather could be a big factor, so that's a fair point because, again, in Vegas, it's not quite 90 degrees, but it's certainly not quite what it's going to be in Cincinnati and certainly here in the Midwest and the Northeast coming these next few days. So certainly, as I've been doing here, counting one day at a time until we get to spring. So we've still got a ways to go. But Patrick here, Raiders, Bengals. Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. Over-under is practically 49, 48.5 to be exact. I mean, what's your thoughts here on this matchup?
I think it's going to be the Bengals with the over and the spread, covering the spread. I really think the Bengals, I think this is a good matchup for the Bengals. Even with the pass rush of the Raiders, I think you just run Mixon at the pass rush and you slow him down for a little bit. And then you play action fake over the top to chase. I really don't think the Raiders have that many answers for an upright Joe Burrow throwing the ball down the field. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, like Justin and Chris mentioned, probably the highest scoring of the weekend. I could see 35-24 Bengals. I just think that I'm not a huge fan of Derek Carr, but
I know you've said it before.
He kind of kicked the can down the road in his last game. He made a couple of really good throws in the last game, but I just think this is Joe Burrow's game. I really do.
All right. And John Gonzalez chimes in here, and he disagrees. He says the Raiders will get to Burrow, and Crosby will get to him. All right, so that's John's perspective, and for you, the Brew Force, this is where I'm really curious to see where you go because I kind of think I have an idea where you're going to go, but I'm going to still ask you anyway, as I've asked everybody else here. And I know John Gonzalez is probably on pins and needles here, waiting to hear what you have to say because everybody's waiting on what you have to say tonight for sure. And I'm going to not answer the James DeSimone comment just yet, but the Brew Force, for everybody watching, listening to this, Raiders, Bengals 5.5-point favorites. Over-under is just about 49. Let's say you.
Yeah, I'll start with this. Billy Heenan, this one's for you. That's right. Billy Heenan, this is going to be your time because you've been waiting. Your father's been waiting. Your family's been waiting. I know you're all Cincinnati Bengals fans. All right. And listen, Billy Heenan's got, the tattoo on him of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got the podcast. He got it all. And he is so fired up. And for the first time, as we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation in many, many, many years, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win a playoff game. And it's going to happen this week. I really do agree with everybody. This will not be the first upset alert, and I'll talk about that in a second. But, overall, I do think that, Cincinnati is the better team. I think their offense is really explosive. I think Jamar Chase, actually, in my opinion, has emerged as one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. Yes, I said it. I think I'm going that far.
He had a great year.
Yeah, he's one of the, and him and Burrow's connection is something special. And, you hear Joe Burrow talk about, how he has one of the best wide receiver tandems in T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd as well. I think he's very confident in his unit. And, yes, I know that the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is a weakness. But I don't think, that they're that worried about the Raiders. And to Patrick's point, I think, the Bengals are happy with this matchup. I think that they previously, before, all the madness happened last week, the Bengals weren't going to play the Raiders. They were going to play the Patriots, or they were going to play the Colts potentially. They're playing the Raiders. The best, matchup out of those three is the Raiders. So I think that they're fired up. I think they're going to come out and play well. The Raiders will give them a good game, but I agree with everybody else. I think Cincinnati covers, and I think Cincinnati wins, by about 10 to 12 points.
I got to throw it out there. And again, shout out to Billy Heenan. Of course, Billy's doing a phenomenal job at SJC for our Golden Eagles. Billy's come on the show. Billy's a good friend, always speaking with Billy off the air. But I got to play devil's advocate because the Raiders win their last 4 games. They have a great story. Everything they've went through adversity-wise, on the field, off the field, horrific thing what happened with the players. And obviously, John Gruden, don't even want to mention what happened with John Gruden, right? They're here in the playoffs, and I kind of agree with John Gonzalez. They are a team of destiny. They pretty much scrapped their way to get in here. The Bengals, I'm not saying they didn't play poorly, but it wasn't as if they really dominated in the second half of the season. I mean, does nobody here buy momentum?
They did beat the Chiefs, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Chiefs win was very impressive.
But the Chargers blew them out of the building in their own home, though. The Chargers blew them out in their own home a few weeks prior.
I look at that Chiefs win as fluky as it might have been at the end, as kind of a culture, momentum shifting. Like, these are not the old Bengals. These, we got a little roar, we got a little bite to us. But I want to know what kind of tattoo he has. Does he have the actual Bengal?
We have to get Billy Heenan on the show and actually pull out his arms.
Have like a logo? Does he have?
He's got the logo on it. He got the logo.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive.
He's like a hardcore Bengals fan. Like he's really
There's not many of
we
them.
had him on the show before. He's really like a hardcore, and he's a Philadelphia Flyers fan in hockey, by the way. He's certainly, and he's a Yankees fan in baseball.
Well, hey, listen. Well, one thing I got to say about Cincinnati, when you look at a guy like Joe Burrow, I think we've talked about it, Patrick, and I think we said it on the show. He just has that it factor. Not many guys in the league have that. And when you see him with the cigar, the arrogance,
he's got.
That's why I'm rooting for the Raiders.
Good Morning Football. They were saying that he straddles the line between blank and I know I got it going on.
Yeah,
like he doesn't go too far, but the cigar and the dancing and the look.
I'm going to say right now, he's going to be a Super Bowl quarterback. I'm not saying this year. Let's not get crazy. But I'm going to say by the end of his career, he's going to have at least one Super Bowl trophy in his case. I can almost see it. He's got it. It's up to the team. And listen, Cincinnati's going in that direction. Another good offseason for them. Add a little bit to that offensive line because obviously,
I think they have like $60 million in cap. They're like number 5 in the most amount of cap money.
They're gonna be busy. I'm telling you this. I think they're a year ahead of schedule. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs.
I think we spoke about that on a prior show, and that was something that we came up with. And we have some more comments, and I want to get to them, of course. Shout out to Aunt Laura, the Brew Force, because she says we're all on fire tonight. So obviously, want to make sure. Huge shout out to Aunt Laura because she's always sharing, of course, all of our stuff. Anthony Finkel, you're rooting for the Bengals, but you're saying, tell him, Tom. You just said you wanted the Bengals to win. I mean, make your mind up here, obviously. And John Gonzalez also says, well, the Jets beat the Bengals also. You just proved my point, John. The Bengals have been a helter-skelter team. And Chris also, for John, says he likes Burrow, His time will come, but not this year. Oh, listen, who knows? I mean, you never know. Listen, I mean, it's certainly a fair point, but the Bengals have shown at times. I would put them as almost like a helter-skelter Jekyll and Hyde team, where at times, like you said, the Chiefs win, but then the Jets game is an example.
Yeah.
So if they're somewhere in between, I think they win tomorrow. But again, I'd like to see the Raiders go through it. I just like to see what their story, what they'd be able to do. But we'll see. It's a 4:30 matchup. It's on NBC Peacock, so definitely make sure that you tune in. And I want to get to the Saturday game because that's the Saturday night game here. That's another 8 o'clock matchup, and I'm very, very excited about it. Well, 8:15 is the kickoff, and that is the Bills and the Patriots. This might be the game, I have to say, that could be the main event of the weekend. I think this is the true toss-up game. I know everyone's going to say San Francisco, Dallas, and that's also a legacy rivalry, and we'll definitely cover that here in a little while for sure. But this is the game almost like the Thriller in the Manila. I could see Howard Cosell calling this one. I could see Keith Jackson and the old Monday Night Crew. I mean, this is the kind of game that screams pay-per-view, heavyweight title fight. It's the trilogy here. The Patriots and the Bills. The Bills are 4-point favorites, so you know right away this is a toss-up game. So if you're a 4-point favorite at home in a playoff game, that usually means it's definitely a toss-up. 44 is the over-under. I think after what we saw, 5 or 6 weeks ago, I don't think these teams are getting to 44. We'll certainly see, though. I'm going to go with Patrick Glass because he's the guy I'm very curious to get comments from. But I want to get Justin's perspective first on Bills and Patriots. Bills are 4-point favorites. Bills got the AFC East in the last game of the season. They beat the Jets. Patriots lose to the Dolphins. And 44 is the over-under. Justin, my friend, give us your thoughts here for the Saturday night matchup here, the trilogy between the Bills and the Patriots.
Yeah, I think this matchup is going to go pretty much like it did the last time these two teams met in Orchard Park. It was a more offensive outburst. The Bills won 33-21 the last meeting, which was in Foxborough. But they're not. The Patriots can't win this game, and Mac Jones is going to have to throw more than 3 passes. And I think this. I honestly think this is going to come down to experience versus inexperience. And it's rare that you say inexperience with the New England Patriots. I mean, obviously not with Bill Belichick at head coach, but this is Mac Jones' first playoff game, and this is a whole different animal. You know, Josh Allen's made the playoffs the last couple of years now, and they got to the AFC Championship game last year in losing to Kansas City. So, you know, the experience is there, and that they've started to take those steps towards, you know, being why we thought they were a Super Bowl contender at the beginning of the season. And one of the things that I liked the most over the last couple of weeks is the reemergence of Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary has, you know, I've been critical of the Bills all season long, saying how one-dimensional they are, how all they do is rely on Josh Allen, whether it's throwing or running. But the last couple of weeks, Devin Singletary has really taken the pressure off of Josh Allen because he's gaining 4 to 6 yards a clip, and it's allowing easier throws, and the defense has to respect the run game now. And I think that it's just going to be a little too much for Mac Jones right now. So I would take Buffalo to cover. I definitely think we're looking at an under scenario. You know, I would say this could be more like a 20-13 kind of game. It's definitely going to be low scoring. Both defenses are terrific. I think that the Patriot defense will give Josh Allen problems, and I do think that they'll do their best to slow down Devin Singletary. I just in this situation like Josh Allen over Mac Jones, and he makes one more play. That's kind of what it comes down to. It's going to be a terrific ball game. Don't get me wrong, but I just think Allen makes that one more play.
Oh, listen, very fair, and obviously, again, really excited about this matchup. I'm not even sure if we'll get to 33 total points, but listen, you never know. You might be right. For you, Chris, Patriots, Bills. I know as Jet fans, it's always hard to pick who do you want to win in this match because it's almost like which enemy on your left and right do you want to pick? But obviously here, I am still excited about this game. It is the trilogy, the thriller in the Manila, Saturday night in Orchard Park. Bills are 4-point favorites. 44 is the over-under. And let's say you.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Justin said about Singletary. He's actually at like 4.6 yards a carry right now. So they're actually running the ball better than I think most of us kind of gave them a little credit for. And it's mostly been Josh Allen, but Singletary's actually held himself up at, I think 4.6 yards per carry for the season. So I think here the biggest thing, obviously Belichick with New England, he's like that Joker card that you have, that extra piece, But I think with Mac Jones, I think Justin said it too. It's his first playoff game, so you don't know what to expect. Number one, number two, the weather. The guy's only played in one
Oh my God.
in his whole career,
It's
right?
horrific
In Alabama.
Terrible
Right.
there. Oof.
I can't imagine how that's going to be like your first playoff game. Welcome to Buffalo. It's 0 degrees. Go out there and have fun. So the last time it was a cold weather game, right? The windy game. He did nothing. I mean, they won the game, but what did he throw? 2 passes all game? So
Great.
what do we expect him to do this game?
The kickoff temperature is expected to be 5 degrees, and that's not even including what the
That's
wind
not the
chill
wind
is.
chill, though.
Right, exactly. I can't imagine how cold it's going to be. So, especially for a guy who went to college in Alabama, he doesn't know about this weather. He hasn't gotten that yet in New England. So, I personally think it's going to be Buffalo. I thought about it more and more during the week, and I think it's going to be Buffalo kind of big, maybe 20-21-10, not big, but like 2 scores, like a 2-score game.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a follow-up question, because I will get to Anthony Finkel and John Gonzalez's predictions in a second. But on the Liftoff Jet Show, I was listening to you and Sharman, and I got the impression that Buffalo wasn't that impressive down the stretch.
They're not. They weren't.
So why then Buffalo so comfortably then?
I just think because New England is not going to be able to move the ball that much with Mac Jones as the quarterback. And I think, and listen, both teams have very good defenses. So I'm not sliding New England at all. It's just offensively, I don't know how they're going to be able to move the ball. I don't think they're going to be able to run that well against Buffalo, number one. And number two, I don't think Mac Jones is going to be able to throw the ball. It's as simple as that. And if they're not ahead, if Buffalo goes ahead, let's say 7-0, 10-0, it's going to be so hard for New England to play from behind and force Mac Jones to throw the ball more. And that's what Buffalo's going to do. They're probably going to put 8 in the box. They're going to force them. Listen, beat us out there. You're not beating us at the line of scrimmage. So that's the only reason why. I think next round we'll see what Buffalo's really made of, because then they're going to play either Tennessee or they're going to play Kansas City, whoever they're going to match up against.
Right. And New England doesn't have a wide receiver that scares you either.
Right. They're full of 3s and 2s, at best 2s. So
I was going to say at best 2s.
Right. So that's the other thing. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to be able to score against Buffalo, because Buffalo's got one of the best defenses in the league. So
no question. And couple of comments I got to get in here. Anthony Finkel's one is funny because he's a Jets fan. He's called us a bunch of times. I know Anthony forever. And he says, the Bills, just because I'll never root for Boston. He gives a big thumbs down, and he gives the Buffalo images there. So I kind of like the Buffalo images there. You're making me think of food for whatever reason. John Gonzalez, though, he likes the Pats, and he likes the Pats in the under. And in his mind, he says that Josh Allen is in for a long day. So that's what he thinks. So I mean, we'll see, though. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't. I think Josh Allen will have a good game. I think that's the case. But I know Patrick was saving for last because I know John Gonzalez has asked about that. But I want to go with the brute force first because the brute force, everyone I'm sure is going to win. Especially, he's always got a twinkle in his eyes. You don't know him like I know him. He's definitely always got a twinkle in his eyes, especially when it comes to 2 of his favorite teams, the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. And brute force, he's getting the text message. They're already lighting up. He's getting text messages about who he's going to pick and who's going to come in, who does he think. And obviously, for those that are watching and very eager, It's an 8:15 p.m. game, CBS primetime. Bills 4-point favorites over the Patriots. 44 is the over-under. The Brute Force, let's say you.
Yeah, well, first of all, my phone is definitely lighting up right now. I won't lie.
You gotta put it on silent. That's what I've learned.
I'm getting a lot of reaction
My
here.
phone will blow up. So what you got to do is put it on all the way on silent, the volume, and turn your phone off with the silence.
I gotta get on that, but unfortunately, I gotta get on that. But I'm certainly not hopping off of the train that Justin and Chris have just aligned here, because I'm getting on the next car at this point. The Buffalo Bills are winning, and I'm sorry, Patrick, but in the end, listen, it's Justin and Chris made great points, and I 100% agree with them. I mean, as a coach, I'll go to that. Listen, you saw what the Patriots are going to do in a cold weather game, right? What their game plan is, what they're thinking, right? What are they going to do to change that? They're going to have Mac Jones throw the ball. That's not going to work. We all know he's going to throw his duck passes or whatever, his short passes, and he's not going to get that far down the field. And listen, Bill Belichick is not there to save him. He can't throw passes. He could do his mastermind defense all he wants, but ultimately, I think Josh Allen, like you guys said, has the experience, has been in the playoffs, is ready for this game, and I think that the Patriots ultimately don't have much to go to on offense. Like, they just have nothing. They already emptied their game plan out, the first time around, what they're going to do. And ultimately, the Bills are going to be ready for that. Like you guys all said, the Bills are just as good of a defense, in my opinion, as the Patriots. They're both very good. And I think that the Bills are going to, make up for that loss earlier in the season in Buffalo and come back and be ready to make Mac Jones throw the ball. And ultimately, that's going to be the problem with the Patriots, I think. And I think the Buffalo Bills will do just enough. But I do see this actually, Tom, being yet another low-scoring game between these two teams. I'm actually going to go lower than some of the guys. I'm going to say this becomes like a 17-9 game. The Buffalo Bills win.
I agree with you on the total. I don't think it's going to hit above 35. Something tells me here, to Chris's point, whoever gets the early lead, they're going to play almost like in hockey, a trap. Just basically hold the puck and just allow nobody to get in the offense. Or in soccer/football in the UK, you get the first goal, you're in the clear. And before I get to Patrick, because I'm very curious what he has to say for a couple of reasons, who would have ever thought a few years ago the Buffalo Bills, a veteran battle-tested playoff team? Because it wasn't too long ago where the Buffalo Bills had one of the longest playoff droughts in all of professional sports. And here we are. Now the Bills are a regular postseason participant. So definitely.
It's just a credit to the general manager, Brandon Beane, finding Josh Allen and drafting him. A credit to Sean McDermott, who in his 5 years has done a fantastic job with this Bills team and has really, for the first time, created competition for Belichick in the division. And it's just incredible that Bill has gotten back this quickly after, Brady going to Tampa Bay last year. And after 7-9 season where he somehow won 7 games with Cam Newton as his quarterback. The Patriots are already back in the playoffs, albeit as a wild card team this year. So, but it's just a credit to what McDermott and Beane have done and the way they've built this Buffalo roster.
Absolutely, no question about it. And again, this is the 4th postseason appearance for the Bills in 5 years. And like I said, they had a long postseason drought. I think it was 18
20 years.
Yeah, 99 was the last time they got in the Music City Miracle game. So certainly that's just something, food for thought.
Was it a lateral or was it not?
And also, real quick before I get to Patrick, and John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, what the Pats have is Coach Belichick, which spells trouble for Allen. We'll see. Josh Allen has had a good year despite the Bills' struggles. We'll certainly see. But I'm going to say something really crazy out here when it comes to Patrick Trotty. Patrick Trotty, no matter who he picks, is actually going to win here. And here's why. Because he's a New England Patriots fan, but not so fast. We know that he's also picked the Buffalo Bills as his Super Bowl team. Yeah. So no matter what happens here, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what happens, and a lot of people waiting to see who he picks. He wins no matter what. He's a Patriots fan. And on top of that, he picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl. So as far as I'm concerned here, Patrick, you've actually won no matter what. So no matter what team you pick, you're going to win.
Typical Patriots problem. No matter what, you're going to win.
Right. No matter.
And Justin's gone. I got Justin.
John Gonzalez might be going up, but knowing John Gonzalez.
My head tells me that Buffalo is going to win. My heart is telling me pick the Patriots.
Okay.
But I've literally gone back and forth this week, maybe 4 or 5 times. If you're listening, any Patriot fans, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go with the Bills.
Ooh.
I'm going to have to go with the Bills here. The Patriots defense statistically has started to slip in the last couple of weeks. I saw a stat where they went from 8th in the rushing game defensively to 22nd in the last 6 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, in there was a good win against Jacksonville. They got lit up by Buffalo the second time. That score shouldn't have been a 12-point game. Buffalo dominated that game, the 33-21 game. To everyone's point, I think, look, this is the ultimate. Is it the X's and the O's, or is it the Jimmies and the Joes? Bill Belichick is not completing a pass. So it's you know, you can scheme it all you want and get Josh Allen to hopefully play hero ball, or like they say up here, sugar high Josh, and just hope he throws into a cover 2, or you blitz him off his launch angle or something. But you can only do that so much. You got to score with Mac Jones, and if they put 8 or 9 in the box and stop Damian Harris, who, like everyone said, who on the outside scares you? I mean, with the Patriots offense, is it Christian Wilkerson? Is it Hunter Henry up the seam? I actually think that, you know what, last year was the changing of the guard, but, you know, a lot of Patriot fans say last year doesn't count. It's 2020. We just throw it out, and it's the hangover from Tom Brady leaving. I think this is the year that, like all the guys have said, I think this is the changing of the guard, the passing of the torch. This is where Buffalo says, you know what? We're going to circle the wagons. We're going on to Tennessee or Kansas City, whichever team they want to face next. And I like your optimism, Tom, that I don't lose no matter what.
Well, John Gonzalez actually just ripped me saying to the fact that I let you off the hook. But to be fair, you're on the record.
I'm on the record of saying the Packers and the Bills are in the Super Bowl.
I mean, he's on the record. Yeah, he's on the record saying
I've got a chance.
Yeah, I mean,
Josh Allen is my favorite quarterback in the game right now. And obviously,
I heard you on the Lift Up last week talk about Josh Allen. I heard the whole thing.
And you know what? I think it's going to be, for some reason, I think the Bills are going to make it ugly at the end. I think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns.
Hey, listen, it's very well possible. And you know what? Listen, you almost kind of get a sense here for the Buffalo Bills. It's almost a make or break moment for them, because
everything's lining up for them.
Yeah.
This is their time. They've got their franchise quarterback. They've got their defense. They're at home. They've had the coach. They built up the culture. Like, this is the time when last year you weren't playing with house money, but it kind of felt like you were a year ahead of schedule, or you kind of overperformed in the playoffs. This year, it was just all out for this game.
And this year, the AFC is wide open.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were impressed with nobody. Listen,
no.
Somebody asked me last night, one of our supporters actually asked me, and she called me and said, well, who do you think could win the Super Bowl? And I'm like, you know what? It's so wide open this year, especially in the AFC.
Yeah.
I mean, because everybody's been full. We've talked about Tennessee and their struggles in the second.
Every team has a flaw in the AFC.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody has a flaw.
In the NFC, too, to be honest. I mean, Green Bay is probably the favorite, but even they.
Well, they've struggled in the postseason and championship
games.
Right. They've lost a lot of home playoff games.
Every team in the playoffs has a but.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
rebut the argument for that team. You can say, but they lost to Detroit at the end of the year. They haven't played well in the playoffs, so.
No, listen, I mean, it's really like a legitimate wide open. It's not like in the past where you had, dominant teams, whether it was the Colts or the Patriots or the Broncos in the past or Pittsburgh and Kansas City in their most recent runs. I mean, there's none of that. So it's definitely wide open here. And we are talking all things related here to the NFL playoffs and much, much more here with the Sportswire radio gang. That includes Chris Pizzea of the Talking Rivals and the Liftoff Jet Show. Patrick Trotty, esteemed author and also the Talking Rivals Show. Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter. And the brute force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC Golden Eagle men's basketball alum. And, of course, there was a comment actually thrown out there by James D. Simone on where would we rank the brute force in all-time SJC men's basketball players. Well, you know what? I'm going to save that when we get an alum soon to be down the road this year for that question. I think the brute force might know that might be. Matt Hurt is an example. When Matt joins us after the season, maybe we'll get Matt's perspective because I might be biased and Brad might be biased. So let's get somebody that played with the brute force and give him their perspective. Give us about 5 months or so from now. So let's just put it out there with that. But obviously, if you like what you hear from Sportswire Radio, please do give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Listen to all of our great shows anytime, like the Liftoff Jets, like the Talking Rivals, like the Baseball Banter on sportinarium.com/player. That is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We play the latest and greatest when it comes to music. We have live shows like the Sports Report with the Sportswire Radio team. We have all the great shows. We have a DJ and Dale that was on earlier this evening in the UK. So please check out all of our great shows. I also want to thank, obviously, the owner of the LWF who's coming on with us Sunday night in British Standard Time, 8 p.m. That is Steve Bibby. Really, really excited to have the owner of the LWF on and to talk about their story. They've been big supporters of us, especially in the town of Clory. I cannot thank enough Steve Bibby for this opportunity. So really, really excited about that. I promised I would acknowledge that and mention that. So Steve, thank you for your support. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your company supporting and believing in the Sportswire Radio brand. So I wanted to get that out of the way. And of course, we'll also shout out at the end of the day, the end of the night, especially for us here in New York, our SJC Long Island Golden Eagles men's basketball team coming up with a huge win Wednesday night, probably their best game of the year, wire to wire. Myself and the brute force will mention that. I'm sure I might be a little bit more experienced because I watched the whole game on the stream, and I'm sure Brad was on a court somewhere at a high school gym on Long Island. But be that as it may, we are talking all things related here to the world of the NFL playoffs and much, much more. And that brings me, guys, as we're going chronologically into the Sunday afternoon game and the Buccaneers and the Eagles. And obviously, Buccaneers are heavy, heavy favorites, 8.5-point favorites here. 45.5 is the over-under. And since he just popped up on my screen, I'm going with Justin Gianelli here. I'm going with Justin on the spot because I'm saving Chris for last because Chris is our Eagles fan. So I'm going to save Chris for last, just like I saved Patrick because Patrick is obviously our Patriots and Bills expert. So, Justin, for you, my friend, Buccaneers and Eagles. Buccaneers are heavy favorites. Eagles have played very well in the second half. What's your thoughts here on the over-under and who comes out on top with the W?
Not really a big fan of the over/under. I think this game might be a total slop fest, to be honest. You know, okay. with the torrential downpour that's supposed to be hitting the Tampa Bay area on Sunday afternoon. You know, I think this could make for a closer game than a lot of us would think. You know, I don't necessarily give the Eagles a chance to win, or necessarily cover the 8.5-point spread. But I could see a 10-point victory. I don't think Tampa Bay totally blows them out of the water here. You know, Philly has played well towards the end of the season, and Tampa Bay is still not all that healthy. And you know, the running game is really going to be in question this postseason, and it's really going to determine how far they really go. Because you know, as great as Tom Brady is, you know, he's not going to be able to do it all by himself. I mean, he can certainly skate by in this game, but you know, at the same time, you know, you don't have Leonard Fournette, so you're relying on Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn in the backfield, and then obviously, you know, how healthy has Mike Evans gotten over the last couple of weeks? We know, as of just a couple of weeks ago, he was still on a pitch count, coming back from the hamstring injury, and we know how tricky hamstring injuries can be. So from a receiving core, the only one who's really healthy right now is Gronk, and their wide receivers after Evans are great, and Evans, like I said, is playing hurt. So there's going to be a lot of young players who are going to have to step up for Tampa Bay. I think they do, but I also think Philly, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're going to keep it close. Now, I don't know how much they're going to really be able to generate on offense. I don't trust Jalen Hurts, but they've been running the ball extremely well over the last couple of weeks. So it gives them an opportunity to stay within the game. I probably like the under in this scenario, and I'll take a late cover by the Bucs.
Let me ask you a follow-up before I get to some of the other guys, because you talked about the weather and you talked about the torrential rain. And call me crazy, especially after the way the New Orleans Saints played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Sunday night about a month or so ago. In those conditions, theoretically, considering the way the Eagles play in their own right in terms of playing it safe with their quarterback and their running game, do the Eagles maybe have a puncher's chance? Is that their best chance here because of the weather conditions? Because I'm assuming if this was 75 and sunny, you go with Tampa by 2 touchdowns or more. But because of these weather conditions, Justin, maybe this works in the favor of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, the one area of whether on offense, defense, special teams, the one area of advantage the Philadelphia Eagles have is their running game over Tampa Bay. And yeah, they're a team that relies on running the football, and they run the football with their quarterback as well. So you're getting running production out of Jalen Hurts. Not 100% sure if Miles Sanders is back for this game, but if not, Boston Scott has done a very admirable job. Plus you have Jordan Howard and Kenneth Gainwell as well. So there's no shortage of talented running backs on the Philadelphia roster to just grind out the clock and keep possessions alive. So, yeah, if the weather is their best chance, and it allows them to control the game.
Well, we'll certainly see, and the Crack staff has given us the weather conditions, and for kickoff, it's going to be 67 and windy. So certainly if you are in Tampa, make sure you bring something to not blow for cover, because 67 and windy doesn't sound too promising. Unfortunately, they should have played the game tomorrow because it's going to be 74 and sunny. So 74 and sunny sounds like that's what we're expecting in Tampa. So I did get to read the weather. My mother always said I could always do a very good job at announcing weather conditions. So hopefully you might have liked it here. And I have a few shout outs here I have to mention. Anthony Finkel, he goes with, got to go with the Bucs. Can't bet against Brady. Now that he's out of New England, I don't mind saying that. So that's a good point, a fair point, Anthony. And John Gonzalez just says point blank Bucs. Well, listen, everybody's going to pick the Bucs here because it's Brady and it's an Eagles team with a young quarterback, and nobody's expecting anything from them. That's why I think they're dangerous. And I'll get Chris's perspective on it here last, but I'm going with the brute force Brad Weiss. I'm going with him right on the spot because we're all waiting for it. John Gonzalez, I'm sure, is waiting for it. A few other people are waiting for it. The brute force, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, might be 8.5-point favorites. 45.5 is the over-under. But do you want to go with that siren? Do you want to get everybody fired up? I mean,
yes.
What say you?
No. Listen, I want to, but I just can't. All right, I just can't. All right, as much as I want to, and listen, Tom. To be fair, I'm checking my poll on Instagram of which of the most likely games are going to be upsets, and this one's leading the pack.
I kind of think the same, believe it or not. Something tells me here, I don't know if I trust the Bucs for whatever reason. I don't know.
This one's leading the pack, and listen, with the weather report and everything, and even listen, a lot of these people who are picking the Eagles are saying that the Eagles are going to win regardless. They feel like with all the things that Justin Gianelli said, to the point of all these injuries on the offensive side with the Buccaneers and with the team in general, it's definitely worrisome. But there's a part of me that wants to. But listen, I've done this to Tom Brady so many times, and every time I pick against him, he proves me wrong. and I just can't do it. I have to pick him to win. And, I'm not doing it that confidently, Tom Bryce. I thought I would more confidently, but ultimately I'm not going to. I'm just going to pick Tom Brady to win in a close game. It won't be pretty. Like you said, the weather, the wind, it'll make this game a little bit uglier than we think. But I just feel like this is going to be like a 10-10 game. Tom Brady gets the ball at the end, and we all know what he does. He finds a way to win, and ultimately he will. And I'll give a shout out to an Eagles fan on my JV team, Charlie Exel, who listens to us. I'll give him a shout out.
Big shout out to Charlie.
He made sure to tell me before practice today that he's picking his Eagles to win. And I said, you know what? Let me think about it. And ultimately, no.
All right, well, to be fair, I just voted on Instagram, and the upset that I picked most likely was the Cowboys and 49ers in San Francisco's favor because
we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but I just wanted to put it out there. I wanted to reveal my ballot. There's no secret here. There's no fake. I actually just voted, and I voted Cowboys 49ers because that's the game I think that's most likely the upset, even though I want to see somebody pick the Eagles over the Buccaneers just for playing for fun here. But, Patrick, I come to you, Buccaneers, Eagles. You know Tom Brady better than anybody. I kind of think I have a sense, though, on who you're going to pick in this game.
Do you?
I don't know.
I would think if you love Tom Brady.
Chris knows. I got that look in my eye.
You got the twinkle.
This might be Bizarro world. This might be the year that everything's upside down. I'm picking against the Patriots. Not quite. Last minute field goal for Tampa Bay.
Okay.
I think it's a close game. I think it's an ugly game. I think I like a lot of what Justin said. At the end, I just think maybe Gronk makes a big play down the middle of the field and they kick a field goal and win it. I don't know. Tom Brady, really? I can't pick against him, but I can't root for him totally. And I just think they have more talent, and I trust him obviously a lot more than I trust Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, if you're going to pick the Bucs, it's obviously because of the quarterback and the Eagles' lack of experience at quarterback. At the end of the day, if you are going with Tampa, I think it's because of those reasons. And again, perfectly valid.
It could be similar to the Jets-Tampa Bay game.
I kind of think that, and again, I wasn't impressed with Tampa the last month of the season. Honestly, I looked at the games even against Carolina. I looked at, obviously, the New Orleans game, the Jets game. I didn't walk away saying, wow, this was the Super Bowl champions last year. But I realize it's Brady, and Brady's going to get a pass as long as he's in the postseason because, understandably so, it's Tom Brady. So you can't bet against Tom Brady. I definitely get that. But I'm coming certainly last, but definitely not least, our resident Philadelphia Eagles expert here, Mr. Chris Pizzea. Are you going to be the one here that picks your Philadelphia Eagles over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road here?
Well, I'm going to try to talk myself into it.
All right.
Let's give some good numbers for the Bucs first, right?
Okay, sure.
We're saying that we're not impressed by them, but they've won 7 of their last 8 games. The only game that they lost was that Saints game.
Oh, well, they look terrible, though. But that was my impression. They didn't look very good.
No. But you know what? They've found a way to win. They've won 7 out of their last 8 games. So give them credit for that. Here's the bad thing, though. We talk about how good Tampa Bay's defense is. Their first 6 games, they were averaging, I think, 55 yards allowed on the ground, right?
Okay.
From game 7 on, they've averaged over 110 yards per game on the ground, giving up. So their defense has taken a hit a little bit. And like Justin said, there were injuries, but they are getting JPP back and they're getting Levante David back, which is huge. I was really hoping he would miss, but anyway, so that part, but there are still a lot of injuries. I mean, they still have AB is out, right? And that's a big one. Chris Godwin is out.
You really think he's coming back, Chris?
No, I don't think so. So he's out. Chris Godwin's out there. So they're off. So their receivers are depleted, but they here's the other thing. They are getting back Leonard Fournette. So maybe they're running.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
So, I mean, like we're talking about the weather. Yeah, I'm hoping that it pours. I hope it's a mud fest and all that. So maybe it'll give us a chance. But again, you can't go against Tom Brady. just like here, the last seven out of 8 games they've won, we're not impressed by them, but you know what? They won the game. And I think that's it's going to be an ugly game, and they're going to pull it out. Somehow, some way, Tom Brady, with a minute left, is going to drive 85 yards like he did against us at MetLife and get the win. You know, I could see that happening. I don't want to bet against him, but I just hope it's not a blowout. But on the other hand, a part of me can't see the Eagles pulling it out. Like he said, it's just one of those seasons that a team like this is gonna pull out a victory. I don't think they'll be able to go much further. Next week they'll probably get destroyed by somebody, but it's just their style of offense can kind of hang in with Tampa Bay as long as they don't let Tampa Bay get too far ahead. Almost like the Patriot Buffalo game. If Buffalo gets 10-0, you could say, all right, the game's over. And I think it's the same way. If you start forcing Jalen Hurts to throw the ball more and to get back, I don't know if they got that in them. So
I think at the end of the day, again, if you're going to pick the Bucs, it's because it's Tom Brady and Jalen Hurts. And let's be honest. This is the biggest disparity in quarterbacks for any of these games between Hurts and Brady. So you would theoretically say, go with Brady, and anybody would be crazy not to pick Tom Brady in this. But again, something tells me, though, I'm not saying the Eagles win, but I think they're going to hang around just because of the weather conditions, because not that impressed with Tampa. I do think they have the edge. They're Super Bowl champions, although watch me be totally wrong, and Tampa Bay wins this game by like 3 touchdowns. This is the game that it's either going to be the Eagles hang in until the last minute, like Patrick said, or Tampa's going to blow them out. And Fox certainly got the worst, I think, of the playoff matchups here this weekend. Yeah. Certainly, I mean, even Pittsburgh, Kansas City is still a legacy matchup. It's still a legacy game. But the game that I'm most excited about, especially as growing up as a kid in the mid-1990s, this was the rivalry in all of sports, in my opinion. Maybe the Bulls and Knicks, but the 49ers and the Cowboys. This is the game. 3 straight years they squared off in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, a legendary rivalry throughout the 1970s into the early to mid-80s. I mean, these were the 2 teams in the NFC and arguably in the NFL. And growing up, you either had a Cowboys shirt or you had a 49ers shirt. You either liked Michael Irvin or you liked Jerry Rice. It was either Troy Aikman or it was Steve Young. It was Ricky Waters or right. We can go down the list here of players. Charles Haley even played for both teams. I mean, so there's a long list.
Deion Sanders played for both.
Ken Norton was another example. I mean, so this is a really, really interesting matchup. I always like when both of these teams are good at the same time. It hasn't happened too much over the past 20-so years, but it's a 4:30 p.m. game, CBS and Nickelodeon. So I'm excited that Nickelodeon is back in the postseason business because I can't wait to see Nickelodeon and their game and how they're going to present it. So you can tell I'm excited about this matchup. I want to go with Justin Gianelli because Justin might be like me. Remember watching Nickelodeon as a kid, and he's nodding here. So, Justin, I mean, this is the game that I think is a pure toss-up. Dallas is only a 3-point favorite here. Nobody, I think, is really impressed with Dallas. Not to say that San Francisco's been impressive, but the way they got into the playoffs, they did show a lot of heart. 50.5 is the over-under here. So, Justin, Dallas, San Francisco, what do you think?
Well, you mentioned all the great history in the postseason between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers, but there's one big thing that has changed from then to now. The Dallas Cowboys don't win in January. They just don't. The San Francisco 49ers are playing some good football right now, and I was very impressed by the way they were able to come back down 17-0, and it was 17-3 at the half. On the Los Angeles Rams, and that really knocked the Rams down a notch because they were a win away from being the 2 seed, and then they would have been playing Philadelphia this weekend. So they really caused a shakeup, and obviously San Francisco wouldn't have made the playoffs. You know, New Orleans would have if.
Oh, thank God New Orleans not in the playoffs. I'm going on the record again. Thank God. I'm a reverend, so thank God.
But you know. I like the way Jimmy Garoppolo's been playing, and I don't think there's an answer for Deebo Samuel on the Dallas defense. Also, too, the Cowboys are really going to miss Michael Gallup in this game, because I do think the San Francisco defensive backfield is really going to key in on CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. And I still don't really know how much Ezekiel Elliott could really give them, because I still think he's battling some type of injury. And, Tony Pollard's been banged up. So I don't like the way Dallas really was playing down the stretch. And, I'm not, these last couple of weeks, I'm not going to really give them too much credit for it, because Philly was playing all backups pretty much last week. And Washington before that was COVID stricken and on a short week. So, I mean, those two wins really I was not impressed by. And what more could be said? The Dallas Cowboys don't win in January. So give me the 49ers here.
Yeah, you know what? Again, somebody asked me this question last night, and they said, "Oh, Dallas won 12 games." But I was like, you really didn't walk away impressed with them. It was almost they beat the teams they had to beat. They were in a weak division, but you didn't walk away from them and said, you know what? They were really impressive. Kansas City didn't play great. The Raiders on Thanksgiving. I mean, there was a number of matchups that you really walked away from Dallas and said, even when they beat the Giants, it meant life. You didn't say, wow, I was impressed by them. The Washington football team win. I mean, just you never really impressed with them.
They leave a lot to be desired, and especially in that Giant game, I think they kicked like 4 or 5 field goals. They got down to the red zone. They could not finish off drives, and if their running game isn't consistent, then they're not going to be able to win a playoff game. It's just simple. The run game with Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson has been solid. Obviously, Deebo Samuel is not just a pass catcher. He also takes the ball out of the backfield. And Jimmy G's a good quarterback. When he's healthy, Jimmy Garoppolo plays pretty well. And I think he could get the job done. I mean, let's put it this way.
He's got a good record for his career. I read off his career record.
Out of the two quarterbacks in this matchup, which team led his team to a Super Bowl appearance? Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, no question.
He's got the advantage in this game. Give me San Francisco.
No question. Anthony Finkel, though, he disagrees. He says, let's ride with the Cowboys. Dak plays a big game, and Diggs snags another pick, and he's got the Cowboys icon. So that's Anthony Finkel's there. So huge shout out to Big Fink. So he's going with the Cowboys, which is kind of surprising me. I would have thought, knowing Anthony, he would have went with the 49ers. But be that as it may, let's see what the rest of the gang thinks. I mean, Chris, Cowboys, 49ers, obviously, again, a lot to be desired. Cowboys, again, 12-5, didn't walk away with them saying this team really was a juggernaut. Even the Cardinals game was another example where you walked away. That was a Cardinals team that limped in their own right into the postseason. They got beat at home. I know they beat the Eagles, but they beat basically a bunch of Eagles second stringers. I mean, so for you, Cowboys, 49ers, Cowboys are a field goal favorites here. 50.5 is the over-under. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Justin. I like San Fran too. I think after they came back last week against the Rams, I said, even before they picked who they were playing, I said, right. I'm on San Fran next week. This is a team that's been playing so well down the stretch. They've won 8 out of the last 11 games. Like you said, I think it comes down to Jimmy G against Dak Prescott, and who do you trust more in the playoffs? And I personally would trust Jimmy G over Prescott. Prescott's had one good game in 3 games so far in the playoffs. He's only won 1 game. Jimmy G's been to a Super Bowl, and he was basically a throw or 2 away from winning that Super Bowl. Listen, 49ers front 7 is not going to let the Cowboys run the ball. So the Cowboys are not going to be able to run the ball against that front 7. That front 7 is as good as anybody in the league. The problem with San Fran's defense. Yeah, the problem with the 49ers defense is the back end, the secondary. That's where they have their issues. So if the Cowboys are going to win, it's going to be on Prescott's shoulder. Do I think that's going to happen? No. I just think San Fran's going to win this game. It'll probably be close. I'll say like 27-20, like that, like a touchdown or a field goal, 27-23 maybe, something like that. But I just think the Cowboys not with Prescott. And then if you look at the coaches too, who do you trust more as a coach?
Shanahan.
Right.
Shanahan.
I mean, how many times did we say, "Oh, the Packers, they only won one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers"? This whole time we've been saying that. This guy's been the coach at Green Bay, and he just fell short so many years. So I'm definitely going to go with San Fran in this game.
Yeah, McCarthy, again, came up short so many times in the big one.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Shanahan hasn't won, but he got there most recently, and you kind of do get a sense that he did a good job getting this team to the postseason. Because like you said, they were 2-4. They struggled. They hit a wall, and you almost were ready to say, all right, that team's going to have a long season. And they found ways. They found ways to win. And that's the hallmark of a good team. For you, Patrick, Cowboys, 49ers, it's a field goal favorite for the Cowboys. 50.5 is the over-under. Who do you think comes out with the W?
This is a game I've gone back and forth. It's I trust Jimmy G more than Dak. I think you guys have talked me into it. I'll go back to San Francisco, but I think the line is close. I mean, it's close. It's indicative of how close this game will be, I think. I think San Francisco wins I would take the over, actually.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I'll take San Francisco to cover, and I think San Francisco wins. I just think that Deebo Samuel is going to, and Kyle Shanahan, that combination, Shanahan's going to script up some plays for Deebo that their defense, that Dallas's, even though Dallas's defense has been playing better, I just don't think they're ready for Deebo Samuel. And I see Dak Prescott. Look, Diggs might make a big play and get an interception, but he's also going to screw up a couple of plays.
Yeah.
He is an all or nothing defensive back. He gets the interceptions, but he is not great in coverage. I just think that the 49ers, like you said, I think you said it perfectly, Tom. They find ways to win. And this time of the year, it doesn't have to be a pretty looking game, but they'll win.
They're a gritty team. They might not have had the best stats. I mean, Jimmy G's season compared to Dak's. I mean, Anthony Finkel is partially right because Jimmy G's quarterback rating was 52.6. Dak's was 104.2. Dak has 37 TDs, 10 picks. Jimmy G's 20 TDs, 12 INTs. Dak's got 4,449 yards. Jimmy G's got 3,800. But to me, what it
for
comes
the baseball
down
fans, Dak is Mr. October.
I was going to say, those stats mean nothing.
That was my point.
Postseason. What are their postseason numbers? That's what you got to go by.
And you also got to remember that, especially with the injuries to Zeke and Tony Pollard, and even though they've pretty much been out there week in and week out, Dallas relies on Dak Prescott to make plays. San Francisco doesn't necessarily need Jimmy G to be great. He does not need to be all world.
He just has
the
to be the
49ers
reason
to win. The 49ers are a more balanced football team.
Right.
He just can't be the reason why you lose the game. He doesn't have
exactly.
He doesn't have to.
He has to manage the game, not turn the ball over, and they got to run the ball well, which I think they will.
Well, you know what? We're going to certainly find out. And again, Jimmy G's 2-1 in the postseason. Dak is 1-3. So to be fair, you're going on that. Jimmy G's got the edge, but I can't wait to hear what the brute force Brad Weiss has to say. Because this is the matchup that screams that we're going to finally get to hear that siren. And we see it coming on the board here for those that are watching this on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. The upset alert, the brute force, I don't have to say anymore. Cowboys, 49ers. Why are the 49ers winning here?
You know, Tom, I'm going to let a song tell you why they're losing this game. If you guys want to sing along, you can sing with me, okay?
I want my voice is shot right now, but go ahead.
How? When they're down, just wait. They will let you down. The accident, they will mess it up. Just wait. The accident, they will let you down. Just wait. The accident, waiting. The accident, waiting. The accident, waiting to happen. It will happen. Yes. How about them Cowboys? You know what's going to happen. You know. Don't be saying, no, Patrick Trotty, this is hard. This is not an easy game to pick. This is the easiest game on the slate. We all know that the Dallas Cowboys choke in January every single year. They are an accident waiting to happen. All right? And then if I have to make points about this, I really shouldn't have to, but I'm going to. All right? So let's just take a look here, everybody. All right? Let's just take a look here. Chris has got his whiteboard. I'm going to go with the digital board today. Okay? We got a loss to the Broncos here. We got a loss to the Chiefs. A loss to the Raiders. And all their wins are against the New Jersey's team. Two wins against a team without a name. Okay? They got a win against the Eagles with nobody. And they have another loss to the Cardinals and a win against the Saints who stink. All right, what have they done to make us believe that they should win this game? Nothing. They stink. All right, they're not good. All right, they're a team that's just waiting to choke in the playoffs. And ultimately, the 49ers are playing good football. They've been experienced in the playoffs, and they know how to win in the playoffs. And Jimmy G, to his credit, has proven that in the playoffs, he's to be trusted. Even though I have been on the record saying that he's not the guy you should pay up for. But ultimately, he's a guy you could trust in the playoffs with Kyle Shanahan and that defense that's solid with everything that you guys have already talked about. And ultimately, the Cowboys cannot be trusted. We're talking about teams that haven't won damn playoff games in a long time. The Dallas Cowboys have won like 3 playoff games in 27 years. What have they done? All right, and I'm not the historian here, all right, because I'm a Mets fan, and one of my most hated numbers is 27 because I hear it every baseball season from Yankee fans. All right? But in this case, 27 is the number that we all need to look for. 27 years, 3 playoff victories, and a lot of losses. And ultimately, Tom Bryce, it's happening again. They are an accident waiting to happen. And the last thing I'll say, Tom Bryce, just because I have to, one of my players, Cooper Shore, I'll give him a shout out. He was my leading scorer last game with 16 points. He's such a big Cowboys fan, Tom Bryce, that after tomorrow's game, he's leaving to watch the game in Dallas. And I'm going to tell him tomorrow straight up, he is wasting his time because they're going to lose, and he's wasting his money. That's it.
You're not wrong on all those things, and I'm sure he'll be on the same plane that our old friend Ray De Niro, who used to be on the shows, and Ray has obviously been with us in the past, and was at the Cowboys-Eagles game last week, and I'm sure he'll find his way there. So they might be on the same plane, right? But you know what, the Brute Force? You're not wrong on all those things. And John Gonzalez chimes in and says that he knew that you would pick the 49ers. But to be fair, they only have 1 win this year, Dallas, against a playoff team. That's New England. All their wins, they're against nobodies. I mean, we're talking about the Vikings.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, listen, they beat nobody. You know what? I know they got the 12 wins. The numbers are good. But you know what? He's not wrong, because I think about some of the 49er teams of recent memory, and they were always 12-4, 13-3, Romo and Dak, and they come up short. So you know what? The Brute Force, I'm in full agreement with you on this one. Full agreement. Dallas, they're pretenders. They're what you call a paper tiger. They are a paper tiger, 12-5. But you know what? This is the game. You throw it out the window. 49ers almost remind me a little bit of like the Houston Rockets in basketball in the mid-90s. They weren't the greatest team, but they find a way to grin and bear and gut out a victory. And the 49ers might just be a team that could gut out a couple of wins. And in this weak NFC, I'm not saying that they wouldn't go back to the Super Bowl, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go on a run, because they got the defense, they got just enough weapons, and they got right now a team that could be gelling at the right time. So I think most of us are in agreement here that the 49ers win, even though Anthony Finkel and obviously John Gonzalez go with the Cowboys. But we'll see about this next matchup, which I kind of think everybody what's watching and picking is going to probably be in universal agreement here, because the one team that I don't know if anybody wanted to see in the postseason, especially the Brute Force Brad Weiss, and we'll get to him shortly, and that is those Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is probably the most lopsided matchup, I think, of the postseason. It is, of course, our 8:15 game here on NBC. Chiefs-Steelers. Chiefs, 12.5-point favorites. 46.5 is the over-under. Chiefs looked much better in the second half, winning 9 of their last 10 games. And the Steelers, you want to talk about a Houdini act? You want to talk about really waiting literally till the last second? I mean, I have to say, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I thought about the guys. Anybody watch the Sunday night game and those two Steeler fans that were in attendance? I mean, those Steeler fans must have like been on pins and needles. And I can't imagine what that plane ride would have been like going back to Pittsburgh from Vegas. So obviously, if you were a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you were so happy Brandon Staley called a timeout, but that's here nor there. But it's Chiefs Steelers. It is a classic rivalry. We saw this matchup a few weeks ago when Pittsburgh dominated 36-10. It was the 4:25 p.m. game, CBS. I'm going with you, Chris, on this matchup. Chiefs Steelers. Do the Chiefs advance here? And is this a game that is going to be watchable at all?
I don't think so. I can't see Pittsburgh keeping up with Kansas City. The last time they played each other, Kansas City won pretty big as well. This is one of the games that has a very good chance to get out of hand, to get ugly. I'm sure NBC is not happy about having this game as their primetime game. I don't even see this being close. Kansas City should win this game pretty easily because Pittsburgh just can't do much on offense. And Kansas City's defense has played very well down the stretch. So, I mean, it seems pretty easy, but, this year has gone a lot of times the complete opposite. So this might be the game that happens, but I just don't see it. I see Kansas City winning pretty big.
So I guess then, is this Ben Roethlisberger's last game?
Please.
Yes, definitely in Pittsburgh for sure. Yes. But unless somebody entices him to come and play a year somewhere else, I mean, maybe Denver. I'm just throwing out a team, Denver. But I doubt it.
Denver.
Yeah, I think he's done. He's definitely done.
Yeah, we've talked about this quite a bit on the show in the past. It doesn't scream like a Rodgers situation to me. It screams that he's going to end his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I mean, we all could be wrong. I mean, stranger things will happen. So, obviously, again, it'll be quite a career if this is the end for Ben Roethlisberger, although I still won't fully count out the Steelers. I'm not going to say they're going to win, but it does kind of scream here a 3-touchdown win for Kansas City, maybe even going away. Patrick, for you, Steelers, Chiefs, is this the end for Ben Roethlisberger?
Yes, this is the end. He's done. It's a great job that Tomlin's done just to get them to this point. And Big Ben has played better as of late compared to – he kind of ebbs and flows to this year.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, I think we talked about it. I think it was like week 3 or 4.
It was week 4. They were 1-3, and it was Sharman, you, myself, and we all talked about, is this the end for Roethlisberger?
To their credit, they're in it, so you got to be in it to win it. But I don't think this is the year. This is a bad matchup. I think to be a little different, 12.5 seems a little excessive. I don't love that line, so I'll say they score a late touchdown and make it 35-24.
Wow. Okay.
And they cover.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't put money on it. Please, nobody put money on Patrick Trotty saying that Big Ben is going to score at the end of the game. But I'm just trying to be a little different.
Maybe Mason Rudolph will come in then.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ducky Hodges, maybe?
Yeah, never know.
Their offense hasn't screamed that they're going to score 24 points, but like you said, stranger things do happen. I will say before I get to Justin and the Brute Force, because I did mention earlier about the Nickelodeon coverage of the Cowboys 49ers, and I almost have to ask just for fun here, because I realize we're going to probably get the same outcome when it comes to Justin and the Brute Force on the Chiefs and Steelers. Is anybody going to watch the Nickelodeon coverage of the Cowboys 49ers? Am I going to be the only person that's going to watch Nickelodeon's?
Yeah, you're probably the only one.
Yeah.
I might.
I hope a lot of kids are going to watch it, because hopefully that grows the sport, and that's what they're trying to do, get more kids involved with the sport. That's what I'm hoping. It would be kind of cool.
But I think it's kind of interesting. I think it's kind of neat. I think there's something about it. I kind of enjoy. Listen, they had a terrible matchup last year, the Bears and Saints, but I kind of like the fact that they're covering a game. I kind of like it's different. I mean,
and they got a good game, right? They probably got the best
a good game this year. Last year was like, oh my God, Bears Saints. I mean, listen, my condolences to you, but I was just curious. And nobody else is going to watch it on Nickelodeon for you, Justin?
No.
Okay. All right, listen, throw it out there. Listen, I get it. Listen,
But Tom, maybe you know what? I'll put it on just for you, just so I could.
We'll put it for like a
I want to watch
minutes.
it. I want to watch it
Just for a few minutes. I
Yeah.
mean,
Watch the drive.
get an
Fucking
LOL out
Yeah.
of me or something. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in our Sportswire radio group on Twitter. I'm sure somebody will get a kick out of it. But back to our regular scheduled programming here. And Justin, when it comes to the Chiefs and Steelers, I'm assuming you're going to say the same thing along the lines of Chris and Patrick, but I'll still ask you anyway.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs this game. Although, however, the Chiefs are a team you do not put money on. And Vegas is begging you to take the Steelers in this game. The 12.5 line is high. It's a line I would not touch. I think Pittsburgh is going to cover in this game. However, they have no shot. They have no shot of winning. I could see a 27-17 game because I do think Pittsburgh's defense will play relatively well. I do think TJ Watt is going to cause issues for Patrick Mahomes early on in the game. So I think the Chiefs are going to get off to a slower start than we expect. Like, don't be surprised if we're heading towards halftime and Kansas City's only up like 10-3. So I could see early on Kansas City being slowed down offensively, and that's going to not only bring the over-under total down, it's going to keep Pittsburgh within the 12.5 point spread, which I do think will happen. But it's Big Ben's last game. They're not going to beat Kansas City straight up. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I like the Chiefs. They're not getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire back in this game, so they're going to rely on Darrell Williams and Derek Gore in the backfield. Obviously, the biggest issue Pittsburgh has defensively is they don't have anybody in the middle to cover Travis Kelce. So, from that standpoint, that's where they're going to get hurt. On the outside, Tyreek Hill is going to be somewhat like limited. He's been dealing with I believe a foot issue. So while he'll play, to what, where's his speed going to be? He might not be his normal self. And on the outside, Pittsburgh is more equipped to handle the outside receivers as opposed to Travis Kelce. On defense, Kansas City has gotten better and better as the year has gone on. They've gotten healthier. And I obviously can't see them keeping up I can't see Pittsburgh keeping up with Kansas City, but I also do think that it's not really Pittsburgh's defense won't allow Kansas City to turn this into a track meet. And so I like 27-17.
Okay, and we got a bunch of comments, not even a few. I have a bunch of comments to read off here, so this will be interesting. So John Gonzalez is going out there. He's going on a limb. He says this is his upset special here. He's going for the Steelers, and he provides a few reasons why. TJ Watt will have a big game. Anthony Finkel, and Anthony's with me all the way on the Nickelodeon comment, so I'm happy about that. Anthony does think, though, it's Big Ben's last game, and he also says, who didn't want to get slimed as a kid watch Nickelodeon? Exactly my point. If you grew up in the 1990s, you watched Nickelodeon. I don't care what anybody says, you watched it. So I'm glad to hear that Anthony's on the same page. And John Gonzalez says, no Nickelodeon for me. Who's the commentator? SpongeBob. And I do have to chime in here. John, I am available because I will be with Steve Bibby, the owner of the LWF, till about 4:30. So if Nickelodeon wants to hire Sportswire Radio to call the game, we can certainly do the audio version. So I am available up until about 4:30.
I would definitely watch for sure.
Well, listen,
I think Nate Burleson's doing it.
Nate Burleson, Noah Eagle, and some other.
And young Dylan is on the sidelines. And I hear SpongeBob will be available. And I also hear that there'll be some sliming, apparently, if the Cowboys win. So apparently we are getting into the action, hopefully. So maybe I have to change my mind and hope the Cowboys win to see a Cowboy get slimed. But I'm still going with the 49ers. But John Gonzalez also chimes in here before we get to the Brute Force. He says he believes that the last time the Steelers met the Chiefs in the playoffs, the Steelers won. Trying to think about that. The last time those two teams met in the postseason. We'll get back to that. That's a good trivia. We'll get the crack staff working on that, John. That's a good analysis there. But I definitely saved the best for last on this one because the Brute Force Brad Weiss, his favorite team in the postseason. Since the Lions are out, there is one of his other teams that is here in the postseason. and that is those Pittsburgh Steelers. The Brute Force, will you be going on here a limb and picking your team? Will you continue the career of Ben Roethlisberger and his legacy? Are you ready to join us and say, here we go, Steelers?
Hell no. Are you kidding me? And listen, I'm gonna make this clear. I'm gonna make an opening statement, and then I'm gonna say what I have to say. All right, an opening statement here, basically saying, all right, that in a way I was wrong. All right, I ripped the Steelers all season long. I said they weren't a playoff team. I said they had no chance at the playoffs. I made statement after statement that ended up being proven wrong over and over, and they ended up making the playoffs. Credit to Mike Tomlin, credit to the team. But here's where I'm going to begin. Okay, first of all, and you guys can say what you want, but give me the Chiefs in this spread. Okay, because I think that this is going to be a massacre. I repeat, this is going to be a massacre. Okay, in Kansas City this weekend. All right, and John Gonzalez. Let me get to John Gonzalez right now. Okay, John Gonzalez, you are out of your mind if you're picking the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, this is going to be. I will actually say right now. I'll make this very clear. And John Gonzalez, you can say what you want. All right, but I believe that the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions have a better chance of beating Kansas City this week than the Steelers do. Because the Steelers, honestly, okay, have done nothing to make us think that they deserve to be here, okay? Yeah, they won the emotional Ben Roethlisberger game against the Cleveland Browns, all right, with Baker Mayfield throwing with one arm and looking like crap, all right? Then they just beat the Ravens, who gave up weeks ago after Harbaugh and the 2 games that he gave away because he decided to go for 2 at the end of the game. Okay, so you're looking at teams here that, they squeaked themselves in. Okay, credit to them. I just apologized, okay? But right now, this is the playoffs, okay? And this is the Kansas City Chiefs, all right? Have we ever forgotten who the Kansas City Chiefs are? Their defense has been better. Travis Kelce's going for at least 2 touchdowns this game, okay? And Patrick Mahomes is going to throw all over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is not going to be close. John Gonzalez, you are out of your mind, all right? I would rather see the New York Jets playing the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend in the playoffs. They'll have a better chance. That's how I'm going that far. And I'm saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are putting up close to 50 this week on the Steelers and getting Ben Roethlisberger the hell out of the NFL.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, you are brute-like. I mean, that is the hottest. That is the most brute-like I have heard you in a long time. I mean, certainly I'm going to have to read off some responses here. I mean, first of all, John Gonzalez on a liar note said, well, listen, Tom, if I'm the commentator, he will watch. So certainly if it was in the UK, I could guarantee you, John, we'll get the game because we are number 1 in 4 UK towns. But unfortunately, Nickelodeon's got the game. And I don't know if the suits at Viacom really care for us much on Sportswire Radio, but that's for another discussion. But let's get to what John Gonzalez and Anthony Finkel have to say first. He says, LOL to the brute force. That's his first response to you, is LOL. John also says you're on a roll here, so he might be a little bit taken back from you. Anthony Finkel here says that brute force is hot take the Jets over the Steelers in terms of playing the Chiefs. And Anthony's a big Jets fan. Anthony is called up here many, many times, the brute force, when it comes to the Jets, and he might be a bigger Jet fan than all of us put together. And he also says, a 50-piece. He's putting a 50-piece on it when it comes to you, when it comes to the Chiefs on the Steelers. And he put the money bag sign, so that's a big deal. And John Gonzalez, this is his response to you, the brute force. You might want to hear this. Pay attention very closely. He says, the brute force, stop drinking so much coffee. You want to respond?
It's hot chocolate, all right? It's hot chocolate. It's chilly outside, all right? It's chilly, all right? It's windy, it's cold, all right? It's just something to, keep the flow going. It's hot chocolate, it ain't coffee. I got the energy right now. I'm excited for our game tomorrow. That's why I'm going. But ultimately, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm giving you the truth, and that's ultimately what's going to happen.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? You were definitely, I would say, very force-like, very brute-like, and certainly tread very lightly. I'm sure Mr. Gonzalez will have much more responses. In fact, I'm surprised he hasn't had anything else to say. It's almost as if he's a bit timid right now, and certainly he might be a bit taken back. So obviously here, I think we'll certainly let Mr. Gonzalez respond here shortly, but that leaves me to the Monday night game. It is our first ever Monday night wild card postseason game. So I am kind of looking forward to this in a sense. Obviously, it's our ESPN ABC streamed game, and it's the Rams and Cardinals. And two teams, I guess, that I don't want to say sleepwalked into the playoffs, but they definitely left you kind of not so impressed, more or less. I guess if it was for our boxing fans that would be watching or listening to this, it's almost like a pretender match. This is kind of what these two teams are to me. They are pretenders. The Rams with Matthew Stafford, 0-3 in the postseason. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, who finished the year 3-7, did not really walk away with 4-6. Not impressive, to say the least. Rams are 4-point favorites. 49.5 is the over-under. If you're a betting person, if you've noticed, most of these games have kind of fallen around that 49 or 50 threshold. So that's one step there when it comes to this games. And I'm going to go with Chris here first because I'm going to let the brute force kind of cool off a little bit. And we'll get to Justin last because he's got the Rams jersey on. So we'll try to walk it back here and try to cool off.
He's showing his cards already. So
yeah, we're gonna walk it back here a bit. But for you, my friend, Monday night, Rams Cardinals. Rams 4-point favorites. 49.5 is the over/under. Somebody has to win here. Who do you think?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. But it should be a good game, but it's a matter of who's going to win. I mean, the Rams are home, but we know that they don't really have the best home field advantage anyway. But both of these teams have looked really good at times. I mean, early in the season, we were calling Arizona the best team in the league.
Yeah, I was on the record when they were 7-0. I'm like, this is the best team. They're going to
right. Yeah, I was rolling with you. But I mean, the last month or two, I mean, they've been up and down. They've been more down than up, I should say. They are getting J.J. Watt back, supposedly, so that should help them. But listen, I said it from day one when they got Stafford, the Rams, that getting Stafford was not about making the playoffs, not about making the championship game. That was about winning the Super Bowl. So that's what this team is about, is winning the Super Bowl. They didn't trade for Von Miller to make the playoffs. They didn't trade for Odell. They got these guys to win the Super Bowl. So that's what kind of pressure these guys are on. It's Super Bowl or bust. Whatever they do, if they don't win a Super Bowl, it was a bad season in my mind. So I think the Rams got to come up big here. Their defense is there. They have no excuse. So they got to win. I'm gonna say they're gonna win. It should be a good game, but I'll say like a 28-24 victory for them.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, believe it or not. I think it's going to be one of those games that'll probably be in the high 40s, early 50s. And
yeah,
I got a bunch of comments in here from John Gonzalez and Anthony Finkel. They are definitely fired up. So let me mention John's first because also actually Aunt Laura has chimed in here, the brute force. And Aunt Laura is giving a big funny laugh. She's laughing at your hot take. So Aunt Laura appreciated it. I don't know. I guess she's laughing with us. So huge shout out to Aunt Laura. And John chimes in that he thinks he's got the brute force's blood pressure up. Well, you certainly might have because that was a brute-like response.
This is nothing. What is
John? Yeah, it could be. Stay tuned. John here likes Arizona. Okay, I mean, I don't really have much else to say on that. Anthony Finkel's got a good take, and I want to read obviously what Anthony has to say. And he says, Rams got to take this or major disappointment for their season. He says, actually, first-round loss should be underperforming for both teams. Cardinals were the hottest team to start the season. He says, let's go Rams. John Gonzalez chimes in here, Stafford will choke. Anthony Finkel then responds right away. It's almost like our wrestling shows. And he says, John Gonzalez, I can see that happening. John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, the focus is squarely on Stafford. It's a prove-it game for Stafford. He says, Chris, he agrees with you completely on these comments. Yeah, I mean, I think all of that is totally fair. I can't even say it's an upset for either team winning here because I kind of think they're both in the same spot. So that's why, to me, somebody has to win this game. So, Patrick, I turn it over to you. Rams and Cardinals. I mean, somebody has to advance. Does Matthew Stafford get the monkey off his back, gets his first playoff win? Or do the Cardinals find a way to maybe turn around their season here and advance to the next round?
If there was a third option, I would take it. Because this is the quarterback I can't stand in Stafford, and it's the coach I do not believe in Kingsbury. With that being said, I think, you know what? I think Stafford is going to throw another pick six late in this game. I think that Kyler Murray is just going to go under the radar. This is not his make it or break it game. He's still a young quarterback ascending. They kind of don't have the pressure on them as much as the Rams do. With what Chris was saying, I think the Cardinals win because somebody has to. The Rams, I think, might be more talented. But I've never believed in Matthew Stafford. He makes great throws and then he makes one boneheaded throw, and I'm just assuming that it's going to be another pick six. I think he's thrown 4 this year. If he has a couple head scratching throws, this is it. It's go home time. It's not on to next week. Let's clean it up during the bye week. And so I'll go with the Cardinals. I would take the over, and obviously the Cardinals with the points.
Stafford, 17 interceptions this year. So if you are looking at that, 5 fumbles he had this year. So, I mean, the numbers are good, but it's typical Stafford. It's kind of that year for him. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, this is a pick'em game. This is truly a pick'em game, but for the wrong reasons. I mean, for the wrong reasons, to say the least. So, I mean, unfortunately, those are some of the things here. And John Gonzalez chimes in here, and he says that Patrick is right. He's not big on Stafford or Kingsbury. Yeah, I think, John, you mentioned that on a prior show. I'm pretty sure you talked about some of those things.
What are these teams' identities, real quick? What do they have to? We're going to find out. But I mean, what are the Cardinals? What are the Rams? What are they going to fall back on and say with 2 minutes to go if they have to get a winning score? Who are we going to?
See, I lost a lot with the Rams, and I'll get to Justin and Brad in a second. I lost a lot on the Rams' faith in them. San Francisco. You can't be up 17-0 and lose a game like that in your own building. You just can't. You had a lot in the line there. You were playing for something. You were playing to clinch. You dominate early, and you let San Francisco back in there and steal that game. And they dominated them in the second half. So I lost a little bit with the Rams. I was still like, you know what, the Rams, they're going to be there. They could still go on a run. But now I'm a little bit now thinking, okay, Stafford 0-3 in the postseason. Let's see. The Brute Force, I can't quite say you'd put the upset alert here on because I really think that either one of these teams could win. So I can't quite say if the Cardinals win, it's an upset. And I quite can't be impressed with the fact the Rams would win this game. But it is the Monday night game. I am optimistic it's going to be a good game. One of these teams has to advance. For you, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, who do you think is it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious the team that really needs this game more because of all that they've done, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. It's pretty obvious. I mean, the amount of draft capital they've given up, the amount of players that they've acquired to make this team a Super Bowl level team. And, obviously, one of them that you guys talked about is Matthew Stafford. He has to come to play. This is a big game for his career. He really needs to win this game more than anybody in this game. He needs to come out and play well. And I think that he's going to play well enough, and I think that's going to be more of a credit to Sean McVay. I think he's going to have a great game plan here. And to Patrick's point, if I'm going Sean McVay or Cliff Kingsbury, I think I'm going Sean McVay. I think that he'll do enough to game plan this game and help them win. And you know what? One of the difference makers in this game, Justin Gianelli is wearing his jersey. I think he's going to come to play. This is playoff time. He's, one of the best defensive players in the league, Defensive Player of the Year candidate almost every year, and that's Aaron Donald. And a guy who's been playing a lot better lately and has been starting to gel in that Rams defense is Von Miller. And I think you see him coming in and making some key plays in this game. This game is going to be close. And I think that you're going to see Von Miller and Aaron Donald at the end of the game, like in a field goal game, get a few sacks and get a few key plays or a few rushes at the quarterback to make Kyler Murray throw it away or something like that to help the Rams ultimately win. But this game, like you guys said, it's a Matthew Stafford game. He has to come out. He has to play well. And I think he will play good enough to help the Rams win. And I think he'll, get to his target, Cooper Kupp, in this game. I think a lot of Cooper Kupp, expect a lot from him. And I think that, ultimately the Rams, who are I think they need this game just because of everything they've given up. All these players they have, the Super Bowl's in LA this year. They're expected to win a Super Bowl. They have to win this game. And I think they will.
I fully agree with you. And before I get to Justin, I have to get to John Gonzalez's comment because John sounds like he's either putting on a friendly wager or he's very confident in his comment here, and it's directed toward the brute force Brad Weiss. So for those who are watching, and especially the gang here, I am very excited to read this off. And without any further ado, John says, if the Pittsburgh Steelers win, he will buy the brute force Brad Weiss a Pittsburgh Steelers hat. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here first.
If that happens, then he's going to have to wear it on one of the shows.
Oh, he's going to be wearing it next show. I'll guarantee you. Ladies and gentlemen, Don, if the Pittsburgh Steelers win, you're getting the brute force, that hat.
You know what?
Friday night next week.
I'll say it right here just for John Gonzalez. I know he's watching. If the Pittsburgh Steelers win, I will gladly wear that hat because they're not going to, and I'm that confident in it. Okay, if they win, I'll wear the hat next week in the show for the entire show.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, John Gonzalez is actually laughing his ass off. He actually put it laughing my ass off. So, John, I guess the challenge has been put out there. I mean, I was almost going to put it out there and say, well, if the Chiefs win, does John wear a Chiefs hat? But to be fair, John has our Sports Authority group, and he allows us to post our shows to be on the dial here. So we'll keep it to John's friendly wager with the brute force. So we'll certainly see if that happens here. So I have to say, John again chimes in and says, wow, he's basically floored here about the brute force's response. So I think we've certainly seen some very, very brute-like responses here. Some of the most brute-like in a while. And that leaves me to Justin Gianelli. And I don't think I have to ask who he thinks is going to win because the guy's wearing a Los Angeles Rams jersey. He wouldn't wear a Los Angeles Rams jersey if he didn't think they would win. So for fun and those who are watching and listening to this, I will ask, Justin, who do you think wins between the Rams and the Cardinals?
Well, first of all, let's put it this way. Who was the first one on this show to call the Arizona Cardinals a fraud and that they were not a legitimate Super Bowl contending team? Yep. That would be me. And I never bought them even at 7-0, even when they lost the first game back in week 8 or week 9. Forget when their bye was. So either week 8 or week 9 when they lost to Green Bay. I was the first one who was not boarding the Arizona Cardinal bandwagon. Second of all, get ready for some numbers here because in two matchups with the Arizona Cardinals, Matthew Stafford was 49 for 71, which is a 69% completion percentage for 567 yards, 5 touchdowns to 1 pick. Cooper Kupp, 18 catches for 169 yards and a touchdown. That is the dynamic duo that is going to get this job done and get them onto the divisional round. The Los Angeles Rams are the better football team. Sonny Michel has been dynamic as a running back. Cam Akers is slowly getting his footing back, so expect him to get some extra carries whenever they need to sub Michel out of the game. And let's not minimize the connection between Matthew Stafford and Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. has really gotten into a nice rhythm in this Los Angeles offense and has really helped move this offense past the Robert Woods injury. Early on when they acquired Beckham before Woods went down, but it happened to be that week in Friday's practice when Woods tore his ACL. In the first couple of weeks, the Rams were kind of figuring things out because, one, Beckham didn't know the playbook. Two, well, nobody really could fit the Robert Woods type role where he kind of takes the short routes, takes the jet sweeps, the end arounds, and all that. Well, in comes the development of Van Jefferson, and all of a sudden you're back to having 3 legitimate targets, and I just don't see, you got 2 guys like that in Jefferson and Beckham who could be deep threats, and then Cooper Kupp, who is unguardable, had one of the greatest seasons any wide receiver has ever had. And defensively, I just don't see, you're not blocking Aaron Donald. You can only hope to contain him. And I don't trust this Arizona run game. James Conner and Chase Edmonds have been banged up all year, and I don't trust them in a big spot. And like you guys have pointed out, nope, I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury. his game management has been awful. You know, Sean McVay will coach circles around him. And there's not a scenario I can see where I can see Arizona winning. And it's not because I'm wearing the jersey. I wore the jersey because I had a choice of 4 playoff team jerseys that I have sitting out here. I just decided to put the Rams one on. So give me the Rams, and give me the Rams actually pretty comfortably, I will say. I say between 10 and 13 points.
I could certainly see that. I mean, listen, one of these teams has to win at the end of the day. One of these teams has to win. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, so at the end of the day, somebody has to win here. So those are our matchups here, and who do we think wins? Anything else you guys want to point out when it comes to some of these games that maybe we haven't mentioned or haven't pointed out?
Let me ask you guys this. If Arizona loses, is Kingsbury on the hot seat? Is he gone? You think he has one more year in him? What's the
He
deal?
gets one more year, I think, but next year is put up or shut up.
The seat starts to get a lot warmer, that's for sure. But not hot enough to the point where Arizona is going to make a change. It's really hard to make a coaching change as a playoff team because you're late to the party. You know, we've already seen 7 teams fire their head coach, and a potential 8th depending on what Mark Davis decides to do about Rich Bisaccia, and you're already late to the game. But it's certainly and the seat starts to get a little warm for Kyler Murray too, because post-injury, he hasn't played all that well either. So the seats start, the NFL stands for not for long.
Yep.
And if these two don't get it done, you're looking at an interesting situation in Arizona.
John Gonzalez has a few responses. He says he thinks that Kyler Murray will have a solid game. We shall see. He also thinks that Kingsbury will be back. Well, because Kingsbury is going to win, according to John, because he's rooting for the Cardinals. But, yeah, I don't think it changed yet. I'm with Patrick. I think one more year, considering the team. But the second half, the last 2 years, they definitely folded and kind of faltered a bit. So I would definitely put him on the hot seat. I think, obviously, to me, it's more about the focus with the Raiders in terms of what they do with their head coach, because besides term. Before we move on, though, to get to some other thoughts and get out of here, the Brew Force, I did want to get your thoughts on the whole situation with Brian Flores, because you weren't with us on Tuesday's show, and kind of a bizarre situation in a sense. I mean, I was kind of listening to this even after Tuesday where they've made the change, but I still am trying to figure it out here. The guy was 19-14 the last 2 years. He was 24-18 over his last 42 games. He had a winning record against the Patriots. I mean, of all the teams that are in the postseason in the last 2 years, he's actually had one of the better records. I mean, what did you make of the whole situation with Brian Flores and the Dolphins?
Yeah, I'll start with this. I've been on the record, as we all know, saying that the Atlanta Falcons are the dumbest team in football. I think the Miami Dolphins might have just taken that over at this moment. This is one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen. I mean, why? What did he do wrong? I mean, listen, the roster early in the season was depleted. They were playing good competition and staying in games. And then, with all that having happened at 1-7, they came all the way back and gave themselves a chance to and make the playoffs and were a legitimate team in the conversation. I mean, how do you get rid of a coach like that? And then, listen, Tom, you hear, I'm not sure who said this, but I know someone said it, that actually Adam Gase got a longer time as Dolphins coach than Brian Flores. How the hell is that possible? You look at two guys. Huh?
It was the same. They both got 3 years.
Okay, so even with that, even the same time, okay, during that time, there was clearly somebody who could lead a football team and who couldn't lead a football team, who was making his players better, or another guy who was not making his players better. And how do you not realize this? I mean, he took the maximum potential of this team in the second half and had them winning games, winning, with the quarterback that we've all agreed on that is not that great in Tua Tagovailoa. He still had them winning. He still had them playing defense. He still had them, being coached and having game plans, and they beat the Patriots the last week once again, like we said, and he gets fired. I mean, that's just, to me, it's just unbelievable. What did he do to warrant that? I mean, I know that everyone wants to talk about, oh, his record is not great overall with the Dolphins. Oh, he didn't start the season well. But he really proved that he belongs as an NFL coach. And I said it last week, when I was trying to prove to everybody that the Miami Dolphins would beat the Patriots, and I ended up being right. That Flores deserves a lot more credit as a coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL based on leadership and how the players respect him. And the Miami Dolphins, I just don't know what they saw, because this guy clearly showed his leadership, clearly showed his coaching ability, and he's a great coach that any of these teams out there looking for, he needs to be their number one candidate.
I'll get to John Gonzalez in a second, but the Crack staff gave us some interesting stats the last 2 years, how Brian Flores' record stacks up with some coaches that are in the postseason. This is an interesting stat here. So Brian Flores was 19-14 the last 2 years. Here's the records of some of the coaches that are in the postseason. Cliff Kingsbury, 19-14. Mike McCarthy, 18-15. Bill Belichick, 17-16. Kyle Shanahan, 16-17. So what this is telling you, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Flores, the last 2 years, was one of the better coaches in the NFL. The stats would back it up. And this was the first time the Miami Dolphins had back-to-back winning seasons since 2002 to 2003 when Dave Wanstead was the head coach. I had forgot about that. This is a proud franchise. This was a franchise when you were growing up as a kid. It was Shula. It was Marino. I mean, they were a winning franchise. They had a stretch of like 20 straight winning seasons at one point. I mean, it was always a team that was competitive. So for the fact that the Miami Dolphins hadn't had back-to-back winning seasons in nearly 20 years, I mean, that's an impressive stat. So this guy's going to get a job, and John Gonzalez.
He'll get a job, but like I said on Tuesday, it was clear that there's a disconnect between the franchise and between the ownership and GM and the head coach. But also too, it is a little telling that when the Dolphins traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he kind of trashed Brian Flores on his way out. And it was clear that there was a rocky relationship between Tua Tagovailoa and Brian Flores, because what was reported, and Miami Dolphin fans are sure lamenting this to this day, they wanted Justin Herbert over Tua. Brian Flores was the king of the Justin Herbert club when it came to who to draft at quarterback, and which speaks to his coaching, but also speaks to the disconnect between the players that were actually on the roster and the front office.
I have some comments.
He'll get a job. There's 7 openings, potentially 8 with whatever
the Raiders
Vegas does. He'll get one of those. He will.
I've got some comments, so I've got a few responses, so let me read them off here. So Anthony Finkel chimes in here, and he says, dumb move. How do you fire a winning coach? I don't believe in Tua, and Herbert is significantly better than him, but Flores should become a head coach again. Brooklyn is in the house because, as we all know, Brian Flores grew up in Brooklyn. He's born in Brooklyn. He grew up in Bushwick, if I'm not mistaken. So this is obviously one of our own, so we always like to support one of our own, just like when we had on the show.
Giants head coach.
It's a possibility here. And John Gonzalez has got a few comments, and he thinks that he'll become the next coach for the Texans. John also chimes in here, which I think John said this on Tuesday, but I'll let John confirm or deny. He said Flores didn't get along with the GM, Chris Greer, or the owner, Steve Ross. It looks like a power struggle, and Greer won out. So, I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, listen, to Anthony's point, you go 19-14 the last 2 years. Usually you get not only back for another year, you get a contract extension. So
here's the problem.
Yeah,
and John's totally right. And again, that's exactly what I reiterated today as to what I said on Tuesday. Stephen Ross is not going to admit after 2 years that he made a mistake with Tua. So the easiest thing to do is fire Brian Flores, who obviously was in the Justin Herbert camp. That was it's literally Brian Flores fell on the sword, and he had to take the hit because the GM believed in Tua, and the owner is not going to admit that they made a mistake in drafting Tua Tagovailoa after just 2 years.
But that was kind of weird too, because they were on the verge of acquiring Watson, but they wanted him to kind of make everything disappear, pay off, all those women, whatever.
Right, and Brian Flores was another one who wanted Deshaun Watson,
right? And Watson wanted to go there
because he never wanted Tua Tagovailoa in the first.
Right, no, I agree with, but it just doesn't make sense that now that to what you're saying is it makes no sense because they were willing to bring in Watson. They were willing to make this big trade to bring in Watson.
They were at that point they were willing to satisfy the head coach, but once they couldn't satisfy the head coach, and granted, this is taking a really long time with the whole Deshaun Watson case, and who knows how long. This I heard today it's supposed to linger even further into the offseason, and the Texans had set like a March 15th, 16th deadline as to trade him because you got to trade him around. You got to trade him right around the league year because teams are going to start signing quarterbacks at free agency.
Right, absolutely.
The landscape's going to change of what quarterbacks are on what teams, and they need the maximum amount of suitors to get the best possible deal. And it puts the Texans in a bind. It put the Dolphins in a bind because now you have this power struggle between Chris Grier, the general manager, who's been there since I think 2002, and Brian Flores, a coach who's been there for 3 years. So obviously Stephen Ross chose a general manager who I believe even outdates him. I don't even think 2002. I think Wayne Huizenga still owns.
I was gonna say I think Huizenga was still owning the team around that time.
I believe so.
I find it strange too. Is like
he sold the Marlins right before that, so I think he still had the Dolphins around that time. I
find it strange too. Like, is Watson now? Is Miami going to go hard after Watson, and is Watson going to agree to the trade because he has no trade clause?
I don't think so because
he wanted
the reports were that he wanted to play with Brian Flores.
So he might go wherever Flores ends up. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting offseason with Watson, with Russell Wilson being available, and also Aaron Rodgers possibly. So
who knows about Jimmy G?
And Jimmy G too.
I would throw Jimmy G out there.
I think Jimmy G is going to be available because they didn't trade up for Trey Lance just to have him sit behind him for 2 years. I think they're ready for him to start. So
I got a couple of thoughts from John before I get to Brad because there's something I want to ask Brad before we get to closing thoughts on this. John says a couple of things. He says he confirms what he said is from Tuesday. He said, Justin, you hit the nail on the head 100%. John also chimes in. He believes that Bill Parcells hired Chris Grier. I don't have the minute to look at that, but I'll certainly.
Bill Parcells right after he resigned from the Jets, before he took the Cowboy job, was doing an advisory role.
Consulting work with Miami? That makes sense.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that makes sense. No,
and then in 2003 became the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
No, that makes sense. No, listen, that certainly makes sense. Brad, I want to get to you before closing thoughts because there's something I find interesting about this Flores take because I want to get your perspective as a coach and a player because, again, you've been through this as a player where a coach was changed, and you've also are now a coach. So if you're a Miami Dolphins player right now, you just win 8 of your last 9 games. You have back-to-back winning seasons for the first time in almost 20 years. The team looks like it's on the verge of being back and being a contender, and then this happens. You clearly played for your coach because you won 8 of your last 9 games, so it wasn't like you quit in your team, and you had back-to-back winning seasons. I mean, so I'm going to ask you 2 parts. As a player, how do you react to the news? And then as a coach, somebody who's in the business now, how would you feel about this? Because this is a guy that won, again, 19 games in 2 years. You'd think you'd have some job security. I understand there could be a rift between the GM and coach, but take me through how you would feel as a player and as a coach.
Yeah, I'll start by a player. I'd obviously be very ticked off. This is not something to be – because, this is just childish in my opinion, where, the front office, the organization can't get along with this guy. Well, he's a good coach. You got to find a way to get along with this guy. And, listen, Justin Herbert, that obviously would have been the right decision. But ultimately, the decision was made. Brian Flores still went out there and coached and still found a way to make Tua Tagovailoa potentially in a playoff situation. So you got to find a way. There's always ways to build. When relationships are rocky, there's a way to find a common ground and be able to at least continue to move on, especially when you have a coach that has proven to be a good coach. If you have a coach that's kind of like, hasn't really proven much, you don't really know what he's about, then you make a decision like this. But when you see players obviously playing for this guy, obviously wanting to come to practice and wanting to, be at every single day with this guy, I mean, it was obvious. I mean, they wanted to play for him. They rallied around him. And ultimately, the fact that the organization got in the way of the Miami Dolphins, improvement as an organization, as a roster, because this was the right guy to lead them going forward. And now they're just going to restart this thing all over again, right? And, Tua Tagovailoa is going to have to learn, another offense, another coach. It's just putting them backwards again. And, I guess, to make Chris and everybody smile, it kind of opens the door for the Jets, to possibly leapfrog them. So, that's good in that sense. But, to go on as a coach, I mean, it's just – you just shake your head. I mean, you're looking at other coaches and wondering, am I going to get fired just because I had a little bit of a disagreement with a front office guy? Can I express my opinions? Can I, speak to my mind? And if I say something and they don't agree with me, is that going to become the issue at the end of the season? It's just not good that this type of move was made, because when you have a coach that clearly is doing a great job and clearly is rallying the players and doing, the players are rallying around him, you don't get rid of him. You find a way to get this relationship right. And ultimately the Miami Dolphins, in basketball terms, Tom, were soft, were lazy, just not a good enough job. They fired a guy who was a great coach. And, as a player, I'd be ticked off. And as a coach, I'd just be scratching my head and wondering, and hoping that I'm not the next one.
Before I get to Anthony Finkel's last comment, it almost reminds me of way back when the Washington then Redskins got rid of Marty Schottenheimer. They were 8-8. He wins 7 of the last 8 games. And you're saying to yourself, well, this team won 7 of their last 8 games. They were on the cusp of actually making a deep run and doing great things. And Daniel Snyder decided he's getting rid of Marty Schottenheimer. And Marty Schottenheimer, obviously, God rest his soul, one of the greatest coaches in football history. And it reminds me so much of that situation. But obviously, that's here nor there. And I want to give a shout out to Anthony because Anthony's off to bed. And he says that, good night, fellas. He's logging off for the night. Great show. Anthony, thank you for all of your support, all of the friendship over the years. I could not be in this room right now talking with a great group of people with Sportswire Radio for 3 years, really because of Anthony Finkel. Anthony listened to my first show, and it was a Skype call, and we were doing it through a phone, and we were trying to parcel through because in those days, it's not like you have now. You have Anchor and Spotify and all these things. You could do the show from your phone. We had this fancy software, and we still couldn't figure it out. So I can't thank enough Anthony for his friendship. But before we get closing thoughts, Brad, want to get quick thought from you before we go around the room and log off for tonight. Knicks made a trade. What was your thoughts?
I was a fan. I was a big fan of this trade. I really liked the trade, but I liked it because of the personnel that they got in, return. And yes, everybody's talking about the first round pick, but it's protected. So there's nothing like guaranteed, that's going to be a lottery pick or that's going to be, we don't know. And listen, I know it's a first round pick, but in the end, listen, Cam Reddish is a guy. He played with RJ Barrett at Duke. He's a 3-and-D guy, a Tom Thibodeau type player. And I think that this is really showing you, Tom, that the Knicks really messed up with paying Evan Fournier for 4 years and giving him this contract. Because ultimately, listen, Evan Fournier has had a great season against the Boston Celtics. Against everybody else, he's been lower than average, and he's just not a great defender. He's not a Tom Thibodeau player. And, listen, he can shoot, but this team last year had success because they had guys who could score the basketball, 3-and-D guys who could play defense on the perimeter, who could score on offense and make plays. And Evan Fournier is just not the right guy for this team. And clearly Kemba Walker is also in that conversation. Now, I know that doesn't solve this problem, but I think it solves one of them. And I wouldn't be surprised, Tom, if you see Cam Reddish playing late game minutes. He's not going to start, but I wouldn't be surprised seeing him at the end of games. And then I think, somebody who's going under the radar here is Solomon Hill, a guy who's been around the league. He's been on championship caliber teams. He's a veteran. And I think the Knicks need some veteran leadership right now, especially without Derrick Rose. They miss Rose badly. I think Solomon Hill is going to be back there. I think he'll play a role for this team, but he's really going to play a leadership mentor role. And I think Cam Reddish will, only help the confidence of R.J. Barrett right now is playing very well. But ultimately, this team right now at 500 was exactly where they were last year. The only issue right now, Tom, is that our best player is not playing like a best player.
Well, that was the talk of all talk radio throughout the week here. Sal Licata was lighting up on Julius Randle. And I'm sure if you listen to ESPN, if you listen to any talk radio outlet in the tri-state area, Julius Randle was the focus, very similar to a Javier Baez and a Francisco Lindor. So remains to be seen here. Knicks are kind of in the middle of the pack here, this topsy-turvy Eastern Conference. And I don't know if it's going to put the Knicks over the top, but they scream right now between 7 and 10. That's where we are.
Now here's the issue.
Yeah.
When is Cam Reddish going to play?
Good point.
When is Cam Reddish going to play? Tom Thibodeau said today that Reddish is expected to be out for an extended period of time. Out for a while.
I mean,
listen, obviously that's the one thing that, we all knew was a concern is that he's been out for a while. He's been out with multiple injuries, injury prone, at least early in his career. But, I think this move, listen, as soon as he does come back, I think they understand what role he could play for this team, what type of player he is. He's a Tom Thibodeau player, like I said, and, ultimately the relationship with Barrett, I think is also a factor in this. And, listen, call me crazy, Tom, because there's another injury-prone player on the New Orleans Pelicans that hasn't been playing for a while that also played with R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish. And you know what? The way that Julius Randle's playing right now and the way that, New York fans are not too happy with his actions, if he doesn't step up his game, and if he doesn't, get his act together, you could be calling, I'm not going to say a trade with the Pelicans, but I'm going to say that Randle might be traded and they might go after Zion Williamson.
I knew you were going there. I mean, listen.
By the way, his name is B-U-S-T Williamson. His name is Bust Williamson.
Wow.
I can't argue Justin with that because he hasn't done much yet. But, I think the one thing I'll say is that the New York media, the New York spotlight, I think would trigger something in him.
Listen, it happens all the time.
He's got to get on the court, though.
It happens all the time in sports. I mean, we see it in every sport. We see it in hockey. We see it in basketball and baseball and football. And John Gonzalez, a few comments here. Clearly, it's getting past that time for us to go because John Gonzalez actually, I think Chris saw the comment. He's actually saying, as a Jets fan, I hope that the Dolphins hire Joe Judge. I mean, if you think, John Gonzalez, that the Miami Dolphins will hire Joe Judge after his performance as the Giants coach, you must know something. You must have certain information. You must have intel. You must have something that we all don't know. And if the Dolphins hire Joe Judge as head coach, certainly as a Jets fan, yes, we are going to be beating Miami.
We will
Everybody's
celebrate.
going to be beating Miami.
Yes,
and we win the Super Bowl next year. So if you think that he's going to get hired as head coach, you have to be joking. You can't be serious. But again, if you think that the Miami Dolphins are going to hire Joe Judge as the head coach, that would be like if the New York Giants hire Adam Gase as head coach. If they want to bring Gase back, if they want to have Judge by all means, be my guest. If you think that's going to help your franchise, if you think that's going to help you get back to the promised land, clearly these owners, clearly John Gonzalez, they know something that none of us know, and we're all idiots. But I can almost say, and I don't want to guarantee anything in life because you never know, I'm going to guarantee and go out on a limb that Joe Judge is not going to be the next Miami Dolphins head coach, and Adam Gase is not going to be the next New York Giants head coach. No. I even heard out there that Todd Bowles could be a candidate for the Giants, and I know that Todd Bowles got a raw deal, but I can't see him being the Giants' next head coach. I just can't. I know the last year was a raw deal. It was supposed to be a free shot because we had the draft class coming in, we had the cap room, but you can't bring back somebody that failed with the same team and a different team in the same town. You just can't. You can't do it. And John Gonzalez chimes in. He says, I can only dream. He says that Judge will get hired. Just joking, man. Of course, John, we're playing along. We love you, John. We know that it's not going to happen. We know that Joe Judge is not going to be the Dolphins coach. We know also that Adam Gase is not going to be the Giants coach. And I got to give a shout out to Jason Facina. Huge shout out to Jason Facina, of course, the head coach of the Five-Town Sound men's soccer team, our Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference team that was won the championship for the regular season and the postseason. Of course, USCAA finalist, runner-up, number 3 in the country. And certainly, Coach, huge shout-out. I'm going to say it on the record. You guys better be getting those rings soon, because if you don't get those rings, Dr. Cohn's going to hear from you. That's all I'm going to say. That's an inside the belt joke, but huge shout out to Coach Facina. Cannot thank him enough for all of his support and everything that he's done. And Coach, you missed us. We go on the air at 9:30. We don't go on at 12. So if you want to get in some picks for the Super Bowl and everything else in the postseason, we're on 9:30. 12 is usually when we are. But in all seriousness, we love you, Coach. Thank you for all you've done for us here in the station, but it is getting that time for us to get closing thoughts in. So, Patrick, I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything that you want to plug, I can't thank you enough for all that you do for us, and I want to give you the floor. And anything you want to say, be my guest and fire away.
Yeah, just another good Friday night. I'm just happy to make some picks and happy my team's in it, even though I'm picking against them. We'll see. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong, but I like your optimism, Tom, that either way I'm right.
You're a winner, buddy. You are a winner.
I like
Everybody else here that picked, you are still a winner because you're a Patriots
fan. But yeah, my teams are still in it. My reality team is still in it. my 2 picks are still in it with the Packers and the Bills. I just want to see which quarterbacks step up in big time situations, and hopefully every team is healthy and fully, on 100%, and we get to see everyone's best and just some good games this weekend. And you can find me at Patrick Trotty. You can find Chris and I at Talking Rivals. We'll be doing the American League Central all-time teams this week. Some dribs and drabs of baseball news. They're talking at least. Something. So that the Orioles moved their stadium back, their fence. I saw with baseball news that if that's the big baseball news, moving the fence is bad.
That's pretty bad.
Not good.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. No. But yeah, new episode.
Hey, Melky Cabrera retired. If anybody cares for Melky Cabrera, still
almost 2,000 hits.
Peter.
It's crazy.
He had a good career. He had a surprisingly, considering his start with the Yankees, he had 19.
I didn't think
he's a busted PED guy, so whatever.
Yeah.
No,
hey, look. Was it 2012 or 2014 where he was completely left off the Giants postseason roster after he was eligible to come back from PED suspension?
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those years. The Giants said, "We want nothing to do with you."
Could be. No, listen. He had a good career. I didn't realize he had that many hits, almost 2,000 hits. I didn't realize he had that many. I would have never guessed that. But he had a nice career. Listen, I mean, obviously, credit to him. I'm sure he doesn't care about PEDs because he got paid. So, but I'm very curious on the AL Central list. I spoke about that on Tuesday's show. Very curious to hear it on Monday. I'm looking forward to that. So it'll be very cold and blustery, I'm sure, on Monday. So if you're inside the house, get the foot warmers, get the hand warmers, hot chocolate. There you go.
I started it already, so.
Oh, good. I can't wait. Listen, there's some names I'm waiting to see. I'm not going to spoil it.
And we might have a special guest, too.
Ooh, okay.
A twins expert.
Wow, okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll All right. So obviously, very curious about that twins expert. I will say, before I get to Chris, I am thinking of a Minnesota Twin that played on the 87 and 91 teams that was from New York, Gene Larkin. If anybody remembers Gene Larkin, I think Gene Larkin was either from Long Island or upstate. Nice little hitter.
Didn't he get the game-winning hit in this Game 7?
I think he did. Did.
Was it a sac fly or a base hit?
I think it was a single. That was the ball that kind of like it just nobody caught it. It was right.
It was just like
It was like Robin Ventura's grand single, whatever they want to call it. So, but obviously looking forward to that Monday. And Chris, that brings me to you. Obviously, can't thank you enough for you do for us with the Liftoff Jet Show and the Talking Rivals. Want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? Also, good luck to your Eagles this Sunday. And I can't thank you enough. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom, for everything you do and supporting us. And guys, I had a great time as always on Friday night. Just 2 quick things. We were talking about Marty Schottenheimer. His last year in San Diego before he got fired, he was 14-2.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever see another coach go 14-2 and get fired, but
I would hope not.
Yeah, that would be a little ridiculous. But another quick numbers here: in the wild card games, the previous 4 years, the road teams are 14-4 straight up. That's crazy. When you think about it, 14-4. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to the games this weekend. Just by those numbers, the wild card weekend is usually wild, and always surprises. I'm sure there's going to be one game, at least, probably two, or maybe more, that are we're going to be shaking our heads and be like, how is this happening? So I'm looking forward to it and praying and hoping and crossing my fingers and doing whatever. And hopefully MLB and the players.
I don't even want to talk about it.
I know it's depressing. It is, but I'm like, just get together and talk. Figure this out.
And I'm dying to talk baseball because we have people like Rob Maraska can't even bring him on because he can only talk baseball. Ernest Dove can't bring him on. Can only talk baseball. We got the Bobby Tats and his Pinstripe Chronicles guys. They really can only talk baseball. So there's a lot of people that want to talk and hear baseball, and I can't talk about really much baseball.
Yeah. International free agent signings.
Yeah, that's coming up, right?
You think the Facebook listeners and the YouTube listeners want to hear international? I mean, we could talk.
That's getting deep into the woods. A 16-year-old projecting him, a 16-year-old.
I mean, if we have to listen, it's certainly better than when I was on the air during COVID, and Brad can attest to it, where we were talking about, well, do you think that they'll come back? I mean, what do you think they have to do in order to be COVID-free and COVID-safe? And what do you think about these bubbles? I mean, so. Considering I'll do it if I have to. I mean, I'll talk to a broom if I have to. I mean, I've done it. I mean, there's anything I haven't turned down in the 3 years that I'm doing this. So who knows? Maybe I take it back. Stay tuned. But everybody can follow also the Liftoff Jets on Twitter at Liftoff Jets, Talking Rivals at Talking Rivals. Please give the guys a follow. We'll hear more from the Liftoff Jets coming up here this weekend. Talking Rivals, probably late afternoon, early evening. We'll play it. I think I'm live actually Monday night with a wrestler. So we'll probably use that as my lead-in. So that's what we'll probably figure out. So, but more details to announce. Justin, I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you any closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug baseball banter related, please do. I can't thank you enough for all you do for us. And the floor is yours. And fire away, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. And then I know, Tom, I know you've been listening. And I hope you guys have been enjoying the Mount Rushmore that I've been doing so far. NL West is up next. I obviously, unlike you guys, I started in the National League. But you get to the National League West, and there's going to be a lot of good names, a lot of interesting choices, because the NL West is two of the youngest franchises in the sport, and so I probably record that at some point tomorrow and then have it out. Got a few things going on tomorrow, so I don't know what time I'll get it to you, but
you can play it Sunday. I have actually got a number of shows I got to play tomorrow when I wake up, so it's fine.
Yeah, all right. So even if it's played Sunday morning or whatever, it's all cool with me. So you can follow that. You can follow that account at bballbantersm. My personal account at jgianelli12. Again, I like the debate. I like the banter. Play on words with the show. If you agree with my choices, if you disagree with my choices, that's cool with me. But keep rocking and roll with that, and it was another great Friday night, and that's all I got.
Listen, I can certainly see with my voice, I could not blame you where to figure out words. And obviously, John Gonzalez says, great show. You guys are awesome. Thank you, John, for your friendship and support. He says, when is Bobby Bonilla Day? Well, I'm sure that Met fans can certainly answer that, I'm sure, at some point here. What are we, 5.5 months away from Bobby Bonilla Day? July 1st, right? July 1st. July 1st. And obviously, John goes in a dig at the Brute Force. He's got one more dig for you, Brad. We're going to get closing thoughts for you. He says, there you go. Thank you, Chris. Brute Force road teams are 14-4 wild card weekend last few years. Hint, hint. So obviously that's one more dig at the Brute Force. So the Brute Force, I'll even throw it in there if you'd like to care to respond to that. I'll give you some closing thoughts. Give us our update on our Plains and Hawks boys JV team. You want to throw an SJC reference? Obviously, the boys have been listening to us. Shout outs to them. So anything you want to say, anything you want to plug, you know the drill, and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week. Friday Night Live here on the Sports Report. Chris, Patrick, Justin, thank you for coming on and obviously having a great week once again. Very exciting. Excited for the football playoffs here coming up. And listen, I'll just say one thing to John Gonzalez, and I'll say one more thing later. You could order that Pittsburgh Steelers hat all you want because you're just going to waste your money because it's not going to happen. So ultimately, you could say all you want about away game nonsense. Please, the Steelers are not winning. All right, to get to my social media, it's at bweiss20 on Instagram, at bradweiss20 on Twitter, and Facebook searching Bradley Weiss. To give you guys an update on my Plainview JFK Hawks, I'll start with the varsity Hawks, who I am one of the assistants with. We are 9-2 this season. One of the best teams in Nassau County right now. Our best player just came off a 29-point, 21-rebound game in a win against Valley Stream Central.
Nice.
And that was their eighth straight win. So they're doing some great things at the varsity level. And my JV Hawks are on a 5-game winning streak. We have certainly came back, and you know what? I'm just hope I'm not the next Brian Flores at this point because I was 1-5. Okay, I was 1-5, and I've gotten my team all the way back to 6-5. All right, we have a game tomorrow against Herrick's at 10 a.m. and I'm hoping to get to 7-5. And ultimately, I just hope I don't get fired for coaching good. I guess I have a good relationship with the athletic director, so let's just hope he keeps me because I have a good record at this moment. So let's just hope. All right, but overall, to all my guys supporting, because I know plenty of my JV Hawks are watching and listening, and certainly excited to hear.
There are a lot of people tuned in tonight.
A few of them were curious before the show, asking me, what my upset picks were going to be, and I said, I said, watch the show later, you'll find out. And I know that they're watching, so I want to give them a shout out as well. And then I'll go right into those Golden Eagles, Tom Bryce, because they deserve a major shout out. Once again, another big win, Tom, against Mount St. Vincent at home, 82-68. I saw one of their players yesterday, Nick Nemekis from Plainview. His brother, Alex Nemekis, is in 8th grade. He's going to be trying out for me next year. So it's going to be fun to be able to coach his brother. But ultimately, Nick is at St. Joe's and says the team is doing great. They're having some great days of practice and a great win, and they feel confident as ever going into their next game against Manhattanville.
Tough place to play.
A tough place to play and a tough team to go against. But certainly these Golden Eagles are in every single game. They're fighting hard, and they got guys like Alex Tabata playing amazing basketball right now.
He's all over the place. Alec Tabata, everywhere I look, he gets the rebound, he brings the ball up, he gets right through the lane, and he scores. It's literally like rinse, repeat. It's rinse, repeat. He had, 20 points and 12 rebounds. He was Rookie Player of the Week in the Skyline Conference. We thought Spencer Malloy was going to be just the only rookie. Alec, this kid is unbelievable right now.
He's, and coming off a 20 and 12 game. He's just unbelievable right now. And, he's getting a lot of help, too. Godiello's back, had 16 the last game. Gordon Scheuer, as you talked about, Tom, one of the young sung heroes. And
I think he's the guy because he's given us the leadership. And I speak with Gordon all the time. And to me, I watch him on the court and how he speaks with his teammates. You didn't play with a player like Gordon. Gordon is a selfless player, and he makes sure that this young team finds ways to win. Huge shout out to Gordon because it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but that's what he brings for us.
Yeah, but it certainly did the last game. He had 13 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. A great game from him. Matt Hurd again with another nice game in 7 points.
Listen, Matt is the man. I'm just saying, that's the man.
He's the man. And, Spencer is back, and he had 9 points. But this team is starting to really show not only their best players playing well, but their depth.
How about Ryan McNeely? I watched young Ryan McNeely hit some big shots for us. And Jake Gordiello in his flow, he was back. And that was the key for us on Wednesday. Spence and Jake were back. We were back to our depth, and we were back to our guys playing 8-9 deep. Tom Bell is back in the rotation. Basir Hoyt. Listen, Nick Nemekis can't even crack this rotation right now. That's how good this team is.
Exactly, and according to the coaches, he's doing great in practice. So
I don't think you're going to crack the roster right now.
Listen, it's just a testament to the job that the coaching staff is doing. Head coach Mike McSloy, Coach Mantesta, Coach Gaudiezzo, and obviously the Cincinnati Bengals fan, Coach Billy Heenan, doing a great job. And this team is playing some great basketball, and the depth on the team just is great. I mean, it's probably the best depth we've had in many years. So they're doing a tremendous job. Give them a shout out every single week because they deserve it, especially coming off a great win. And I hope that they continue to do that in the Skyline Conference. So, Tom, thank you for another great week. I'll just leave it with 2 more things. All right. I'll say it one more time to John Gonzalez. All right. There's no way in hell I'm wearing that Pittsburgh Steelers hat because there's no way in hell they're winning. So I'm making it clear right now. If they win, I'll wear that hat. And, Cowboys fans out there are probably saying, why don't you wear our hat too if we win? Well, I'm going to wear the Pittsburgh Steelers hat if they win. That's the deal here, and that's the last thing I'm saying. And the final thing I'll say, just because I just mentioned the Cowboys, I'll say it nice and calmly. How about them Cowboys? We'll see.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen,
we'll see them collapse this weekend. See you next week, everybody.
To quote John Bon Jovi, we are going out in a blaze of glory. But I do want to mention Chris because Chris logged off because, unfortunately, his block is out of power. So, Chris, don't worry about it. We're getting off. Stay safe. Please, whatever you do, if you are out there, the winds are very bad right now. It's going to be a very tough weekend. So please stay safe out there, especially if you're in the tri-state area. So definitely that is taken care of. And again, shout out to our Golden Eagles. If you like the men's basketball team, give them a follow on Twitter at SJC_MBB, Instagram SJCMBB. This is a team. They're a lot of fun to watch. Coach McSloy has done a phenomenal job in a short amount of time. They've had a lot of adversity, a lot of stuff going on with COVID. They've won 6 of their last 9 games. You feel like the momentum is finally here with this team in such a short amount of time. You feel like that this program is on the verge. They've got some great players, and they're all young. I mean, with the exception of really O'Halloran, Matt, and Gordon, they're going to be all together. Anthony Ferrafino has given some huge minutes also. Got to mention him because I see Spence and Anthony being like the twin towers of SJC next year and certainly even this year, later in the year. So a lot of big games. Want to shout out the team. Always shout outs to Coach Gaudiezzo, Coach Heenan, Coach Mantesta, certainly Coach McSloy. I was speaking with Coach McSloy yesterday. He has always been one of our biggest supporters, so we always want to make sure we support our own. And, of course, the Golden Eagles, the men's basketball team. I get messages from Matt Hurt all the time, Gordon, Kevin O'Halloran. Alec is following me now. So a lot of the boys, Ryan McNeely, shout out to Ryan. Ryan's father and son follow us. So we've got to give shout outs to both. And Ryan's father is a very good coach and a big name in the basketball world on Long Island as well. So a lot to look forward to. A lot to like, obviously. I can't thank everybody enough for tuning in here to tonight's show. If you are on sportnarium.com/player, you will get the sit-down marks in about 10 or so minutes. If you are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I thank you. We will be back at 8 p.m. British Standard Time Sunday night. We will be back with the owner. That's right, the owner of the LWF, the Lancashire Wrestling Federation, Steve Bibby. So really, really excited to speak with Steve Bibby. Thank you, Steve, for your support, of course, out there in the town of Clory, where we are number one. We are the number one radio show, number one radio station because of those people in those little towns. That's how you do it. We had people listening in Iceland, Belize just before, Sweden, Australia. I want to thank all of our people across the globe that were tuned in tonight. We had 13 countries. I think it was 14 countries, actually. So I want to thank all of our friends across the world that are tuned in here and all of our great platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also sportnarium.com/play. So we'll be back Sunday night live, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, sportnarium.com/play with Steve Bibby. We'll have more announcements. You can also catch Baseball Banter this weekend, Talking Rivals, Liftoff Jets, and amongst many other shows. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here at Sportswire Radio. We are with Chris Bizet, the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals. Patrick Trotty, esteemed author, also the Talking Rivals. The Brute Force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC Golden Eagle, head coach for our Plainview JFK boys JV basketball team, and Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. Good night. Thank you. We will continue our 3-year anniversary celebration this Sunday night, Sunday afternoon here in New York with Steve Bibby. We'll be back. Thank you and good night.